Rawson preliminary plans. Thank you all for coming. I think we may have a few more planning commission members coming. They may be parking, so that may be the problem. All right. Or not parking, yes. What we're going to do is, for this meeting, is to continue on from where we left off at our last meeting. I wanted to check with my board members about the topics you want to be sure to cover before we move, hopefully, to a vote later this evening. Obviously, the traffic study is something we had continued until this meeting. We wanted to discuss the waivers one by one to make sure we considered all the waiver requests. We were going to review the landscape buffer information. We wanted to continue our discussion of the housing sites above the rye field, and then any issues that might come up during public comment this evening. So my question to you is, are there other major topics that we need to be sure to cover tonight? Does anyone remember anything more? Good.
It's not a major subject, but maybe you can address it as you're addressing other comments about the historical features in the lots. How many of them you anticipate maintaining? Like, hopefully you'll be maintaining the water tower and some of the other outbuildings, if you can, and with things, and how you anticipate working that. Okay. So perhaps as we're working through other things, historical features could be addressed.
Okay. I'd like to start with Amy's traffic memo, which we have. Amy, would you be able to take us through your comments, but kind of expand a little bit more on what the traffic study finds? For instance, what the most increase in traffic would be at any particular time that you noticed?
Can we get a copy of it? We have not seen it.
Oh, certainly. Do you have a copy for the applicant? Sue's going to get you one.
You want to warn now? Yeah. We would like it back, or at least a replacement.
Thank you.
This chart is the first I've seen.
Yeah, we just got that.
We were hoping to get it.
It was given last week, so, yeah. Okay.
Amy?
Sorry about that. I got tied up in discussions over here. When we did went through the analysis the first time, we had asked for recounts of the traffic counts. So new counts were taken. Unfortunately, a couple of the schools were not in session, some of the universities. However, when I reviewed the data for the adjacent intersections and did a match for the links that they share between the two intersections, I found that those numbers were comparable or greater than the intersections that were taken during the appropriate time when all schools were in session. So I don't have a problem with any of the traffic counts that were taken.
So you're comfortable with all the counts?
I am comfortable with the counts that were taken. That would have been page 2, review comment A2. As far as the site distance, I think that there is just, that is something that's going to have to be addressed once they've started constructing and looking at it. We would be having discussions with PennDOT on those site accesses to see if PennDOT wanted them to upgrade them to more current standards, or if they would allow them to remain as they are. And they
so
would
who
have
has the final say on that? Would that be the township working with the applicant, or would that be PennDOT?
It would be PennDOT working with the township and the applicant.
Good.
Usually, it doesn't come down as a hard line unless there's a safety issue, and then they would require them to possibly move the wall if that's in the way of any kind of line of sight.
And that would likely only affect the areas right at the intersection, correct?
Well, it could potentially be a problem at the driveways. There was some discussion about some of the walls, and that there were some shrubs that needed to be removed. And those are difficult to tell right now. You can usually do some kind of a eyeball to get a feel for what you have. I don't anticipate that it's going to be a problem in that area. As far as the volumes that you were talking about, the greatest significant delay is on Radnor, Chester, and Conestoga Road. That intersection, which isn't surprising because it already has problems with it. And the problem is that it's very difficult to come in there and widen. The general rule of thumb when PennDOT comes through for these types of reviews is whether there's a 10-second degradation for the intersection or for if you have a significant number of left turns because of your the proposed development, then you might look at that and consider whether or not they need to make improvements to that. We look at queue lengths and what the storage areas are, and I'm not seeing any kind of problems with what's existing out there beyond what's going on right now in your typical, when you're traveling down the roadway. There are some problems, but they're prior existing problems. The other intersection that we had asked them to look at a little bit more closely was the Darby-Paoli Newtown Road intersection. That has the right turn, has the through movement, whereas the through movement has stop. So it's a different type of traffic control. And one of the things that I would recommend is discussing that with PennDOT to see if PennDOT would accept an always stop or what it is they would like to be done at those intersections.
You're talking about Newtown Road and Darby-Paoli?
Yes.
There's no longer a right turn without stopping there. That was...
It's not an always stop control at that intersection right now.
No, I know that, because if you're
Okay.
traveling east on Darby-Paoli, you don't have to stop. Whether you're going straight or taking a left on Newtown Road. But it used to be that if you were on Darby and you were taking a right onto Newtown Road.
Correct.
You used to not have to stop for the right-hand turn, and now you do.
Right, but the opposing side has the through movement, correct?
It had it even before.
Okay, I know that.
Yeah,
That's what
it
I'm
always
saying.
had it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is
Okay.
that's an unusual and atypical type of intersection.
Correct.
We normally find those types of intersections that have been that way for 50 or 60 years.
I think we
when
can
our-
say it's annoying. You don't have to beat around the bush.
Well, that would be my opinion too, but.
Because not everybody understands it when they get there.
Right, so that's something that I think we should, that would probably be discussed with PennDOT, and it will be discussed with PennDOT to see if it should go to an always stop control or if it should remain as it is. So that's what I would recommend, is holding off until we have our HOP discussion with PennDOT.
Can I ask a question about that intersection tonight? And I know that it was particularly unusual tonight because of the road closure on 320. So there was a particularly heavy volume of traffic on Newtown Road because you couldn't go down. If you were on 320, you had to take the right on Conestoga because Sproul Road is closed between Conestoga and Bryn Mawr Avenue today. The backup on Newtown Road was all the way back beyond Abraham's Lane. What I was going to say about that tonight, just about this traffic in general, is that it's not uncommon for Newtown Road to be backed up almost all the way to Abraham's on any given night. I don't want people to attribute tonight to just Sproul Road because it was beyond Abraham's tonight with Sproul Road closure, but it's pretty typical for Newtown to be backed up to Abraham's or almost Abraham's nightly in the 5:30 to 6:10 range.
Okay.
From Darby-Paoli Road all the way back. My question to you about that is this. Clearly, it's not traffic from the development because the development's not even there yet.
Correct.
But it's my recollection. It feels like that there's lots of times when we have development taking place, and because traffic has worsened over time on any number of roads that are going to be further impacted by a development, that those developers have to do some traffic improvements in the area, or often do some traffic improvements. And I don't even know if there's anything to do on Newtown Road to make the stacking. It's a 10 or 15-minute wait with the way the intersection works. And that's a long time to sit on Newtown Road waiting to take a left on Darby-Paoli.
Agreed. And it's because they're looking for that gap in traffic. And like I said, those are two state roads coming together. I can say in this meeting to you, we're going to put an always stop in there, but realistically, PennDOT is the one that owns and maintains that intersection, and it will be up to them if it would become an always stop control or how it would be handled in the future. I can only tell you that the development, the traffic impact study for this development is showing 18 trips heading to that intersection from Newtown in the morning and 15 trips going down Newtown in the afternoon. And I had reviewed the distribution, was satisfied with the way that they came to their numbers. So, and PennDOT would likely look at this and come up to the same conclusion that I have. However, we can still have those discussions. The problem is that the software that we have doesn't do a great job of analyzing that type of an intersection because it's very unusual. I don't think I've ever seen it, and I've lived quite a few states. And this is the only place that I've ever seen that type of movement, and it was very confusing to me the first time I came here, so I can understand why we can't model it accurately.
So you feel that the stacking is probably predominantly due to that through traffic traveling east on Darby Paoli?
It could be, but you also said that it's typical, that,
Well,
those types of things.
it's not, what I was trying to say is that the traffic has increased over time, and tonight's traffic was extraordinary because of the road closure on Sproul Road, but what I was really trying to say is that it has become typical for there to be a backup on Newtown Road in the evening every night. And
Okay.
that's what I was trying to say is typical.
And it was just more.
It's
Okay.
over in the 14 years I've lived there, it's grown, it's exponentially grown the traffic, that backup.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had just an additional concern on that same intersection. I hadn't had Sue's experience when I'm driving through there. I've never noticed it to be that bad. But I'm concerned, of course, with the additional traffic coming in. And also, I think we're going to be looking at more pedestrians in that area crossing those roads when the park is open and when the Ryefield trails are incorporated. And I'm wondering if, at what point we could suggest to PennDOT or encourage PennDOT to look at lights for that intersection.
I don't think PennDOT would be against putting lights up if that was something that the township
So
would want to do.
at what
If it-
point would the township start to think about, is that something we want to do there?
If that's something that you would want to do, then this would be the appropriate time to do something like that, if that's what you want.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it to say, yes, I would want that or not want that, but I
Right.
think it's something maybe that should be
I mean,
looked
if
at.
the lighting is more of a safety issue, if your concern is pedestrians, it's not as likely that you're going to have pedestrians walking there during the evening hours when lights really do help out with the intersection.
You're talking about a stoplight.
I'm talking about a stoplight,
Oh,
not
your traffic light.
a traffic light. I'm not
Well, you
talking
say
about
lights to me, and I'm thinking luminaires, so
I'm sorry.
that's all right.
I meant, would we consider a traffic light?
That would be a discussion with PennDOT to look at the information and see what they would like to do. Once you start putting traffic lights in, you start introducing more crashes sometimes. They're not as severe. There's other issues that can come with that.
Maybe we
It
could start
kind of
with the
changed
interim
the
step.
whole, when you
Yeah.
talked about the luminaire, this whole area is very bucolic, and you start putting a traffic signal in, and you've changed the entire
Yes, the look of it.
feel and look of the area. And
All
I've
right.
been
I was
hearing
just
a lot
wondering
of
where
discussion.
what we were thinking on that. Thank you.
That's, okay.
Well,
Did you have
Amy,
something?
one other thing, when you're addressing that intersection, can you also pay particular attention to Abrams and Newtown? Because if you're pulling out of Abrams, it's extremely difficult in the morning to make a left turn on there. Because visibility is not good because of trees, and you almost have to close your eyes and step on the gas.
Well, don't
Just
do
go.
that. But if you see some trimming that you think would be helpful.
No, it's a
that's-
giant tree. I wouldn't say trim it. You just sort of have to creep out.
That's not what I want to hear. Sometimes we can trim up the branches underneath to allow you that better visibility, right or left.
Well, you
but
could, looking
is it a
left,
monster tree?
because they're evergreens, but looking right, there's nothing to trim, really. And-
Okay.
And I really don't want to see the tree go. It'd
All
be
right.
just nice to somehow give us a break on
Well,
Abrams.
I don't think you meet the warrants because I was trying to look at that,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that there's been some concerns with residents coming out of Abrams, and it looks like you have a lot of cut-through traffic on that roadway there.
But you're also going to have a lot more traffic coming out from Ardrossan from
Well,
Abrams.
we don't know for sure that people are going to go in that direction. When the analysis was done, it's based on what the volumes are on there right now, and the predictions for that. And we're looking at two trips coming in and out for the AM peak hour, and then a total of 8 trips, 7 coming
You're
out
talking
and 1
about
in.
coming from the Ardrossan property.
Correct. No. The trips associated with Ardrossan traveling on Abrams during the AM and PM are less than 10 during the AM and the PM peak hours. So it's not enough
But
that
that's
it's going to...
pre-development.
It's not, no, it's not pre-development. That's post-development. And additional from what's out there right now.
I find that hard to believe.
Well, based on the distribution that's out there, and you got to remember, you have a lot of other volumes that are being pulled up to other roadways that were studied in this area. And
Now, I've got to be missing something in this conversation. I'm talking about Abrams is going to be a 4-way intersection eventually when Ardrossan is developed, because you're going to have traffic coming out of Abrahams from Ardrossan. You have the current traffic on Abrahams, and it's difficult to pull out on Newtown Road in the right or left direction. And maybe a stop sign there would give everybody a break so that, we'd have a shot at getting out. If we can't have a light, I could understand perhaps you can't have a light, but let's look at a 4-way stop there.
Amy, could you clarify that?
yeah,
There's a belief
got that
that with
wrong.
70 houses
I got
being
that wrong.
built, okay.
I forgot that coming out the main house, that driveway right there. So that particular driveway has 3 that are going across through Abrams, and a total of 20 coming out of that access during the AM.
But then you're also going to have lawn people, you'll have delivery people.
Well, those are more off-peak hours. You don't typically get them at 7 o'clock in the morning. And you don't
might,
typically.
in some cases.
Well, based
Yeah.
on the calculations that we do for this, these are the number of trips that you anticipate. It's following this national procedures for developing trip generation. So this is not just something that's pulled out of the sky.
I'm not looking at national procedures, I'm looking at what is happening in the neighborhood now, and I would anticipate the same type of traffic coming out of those houses when they're developed as I see now. There's a lot of different lawn services.
Right.
And they have trailers behind them, they park on Abrams Lane, because I don't know why they don't pull in driveways, but they don't. And it's difficult to get out. And a lot of them start early, especially in the summer. You have construction people working, you hear them hammering at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Right. The standards that we look at say that during a 24-hour time period, there's 10 vehicles per household, trips coming in and out of a driveway. And if you add up what you do in a typical day, it's probably a little less than that, and it takes into consideration those types of deliveries and things like that. And it's a national standard that we do.
I
And I hear
understand
what
your
you're saying,
national
but-
standard, but I know what goes on
Well,
in the
you
neighborhood
can't-
too.
Well,
And
I
I
mean,
think
but-
we need to use both.
Well,
All right, well, we're not going to change the standards that we use right now. So, Amy, did you have something you wanted to
Yes,
say briefly?
yeah. I just want to say briefly that from the standpoint of Darby Paoli and Newtown Road, the applicant has no position really between an all-way stop and the present. We believe that request to PennDOT, whatever the township wants to be asking PennDOT for there, is certainly not going to be opposed by us. So just so you know, the applicant's position is whatever the township wants to propose as far as 3-way or
Okay.
present is fine.
Great, thank you. Amy, could you go, let's move on through the memo, and then we'll get back to the discussion.
Okay. Well, now I got to figure out. I'm not sure where you want to go with the discussion.
The comments you had, I was concerned about well, we talked about the site distances and the counts. Was there anything else about the,
The comment number 4 is very minor. It's just a bookkeeping idea, is that you come in and you would use the present signal timings that are out there. Those were based on 80 seconds. When I was looking over the permit plan, I noticed that the file that was presented in the report was based on a 90-second cycle length rather than the 80-second cycle length. It's not that important. It's just more or less making sure that it's comparing apples to apples
Okay.
is what I was looking for on that one.
I wasn't sure what that
And
was about.
quite honestly, that can be handled with the PennDOT submission, because this has not been submitted to PennDOT, and they will have comments too.
Who
unless
else
it's
has
perfect.
questions for Amy?
Well, I apologize, I was a couple minutes late. I'm most interested in your report, the comment number 1 about the internal roadways. You know, your feeling is that there should be a maximum of, I'm trying to read it off of my phone, maximum of 2 accesses, and yet they have, I think it's 4? Thank you. Oh, I didn't get a hard copy, thank you. You know, I don't, it's a comment that you mentioned last month. I agree with the concern. I think several planning commission members expressed concern and requests for some kind of internal circulation. Certainly, many of the neighbors have expressed concern about, you know, the concentration, the increase in the number of access points on Newtown Road. I understand and agree with why it is that we don't have additional access on Darby Paoli, you know, so that piece I understand why the developer, you know, didn't utilize Darby Paoli. Don't get me wrong there. But I don't see that anything is altered or changed, and I'm not really sure what we're supposed to do with that comment with regard to the plan.
Well, it's not a CELDO requirement. It's a preference for how the land gets carved up, which is entirely up to the applicant as long as they're following the provisions in CELDO and zoning, and which they are on these. So it's more or less something that they would have to agree to on it. As far as the number of accesses to the road, I don't know what PennDOT's position would be on it. I don't know if PennDOT is going to ask for them to concentrate the driveways or do some kind of internal circulation so that all the vehicles come out at a particular location. I'm not really sure how that's going to be handled through PennDOT. And that's why the comment's there, because there's nothing in CELDO that says you can't have this many accesses or you can't do that. PennDOT does have something in their PA code. I don't know how strong they follow that, because a lot of these driveway accesses are existing conditions.
Did the applicant respond to your comments?
I don't think to the traffic impact study, because those are fairly recent. It was, am I right?
Tonight is the first time we've seen that memo.
Thank you, just
Okay.
got him, got it, thank you.
Yes, they did respond to the land development comments.
Thank you.
The
Any other
applicant-
questions for Amy?
I just wanted to make a collateral comment. And the applicant just got Amy's comments tonight, but comment number 1 is something we brought up at the other meeting.
Yeah.
So could you respond to our comment as opposed to Amy's? At the end of the meeting, you said, for example, that it would be less than ideal to connect the very long cul-de-sac of what I'm calling the village, the 18 units, because it would destroy some heritage plantings. And then I said, of course, you would have no destruction of any plantings if you didn't build. I was making a joke, but at the same time, it was still a serious comment that could you possibly connect, I guess it's phase 1 up here or phase 2? When I say up here, the upper corner.
What we have come, and we do have a sketch of, is an emergency access connection, so that we provide the safety issue of it for in case this entrance or someplace along here is blocked, and we're proposing a 5-foot wide pedestrian path with stabilized sides to it for there to be vehicle access if need be in an emergency situation through there. That's what we're providing.
So you still need the waiver then for the length of the cul-de-sac? Because that's not really
That's correct. That's correct.
changing it that much from a cul-de-sac.
It is providing a second exit from it like the other cul-de-sac, and yes, it's an entirely different type of community from what the other is.
would you show me again where this,
Dave, you have that plan?
just show me with your fingers, all I need. Oh, way up at the top,
We have, I guess it's
from there.
up here, this is a blow-up, a 50-scale blow-up at the end of the cul-de-sac. We have a stormwater management system in this area here between the two, and our roadway or pathway would connect the end of the cul-de-sac with the road that's coming in there.
While you're up, could you just, because the number of driveways is a real big issue. So we've got the village, obviously I see they're all going out the one way as well as the ones on the right.
With the exception of that existing
Right.
house.
Yeah, right. So I'm only counting 4. I know there's 5, but I'm counting 4. So the main
And-
curved drive now is accessing the mansion with 3 lots, or just the mansion?
This,
No, the one to the
This.
left, yeah.
this is a one-way in retention of an existing driveway for basically historical and preservation purposes. The two-way road will be here, and other than somebody coming, well, other than probably that person, there's really no benefit to coming in this one way to then make that turn and get back there. You're going to get on the two-way road and go. Whether you're those people, these people, probably these people, this guy is the only guy that probably has a benefit of coming in there. We don't expect that to be really very much used. It's a preservation of a feature.
So you really have 3 main
We really have 3 main.
that are
This
going
one,
to take the bulk of the traffic.
this one, and that one.
Right.
And is that main two-way road is one of the roads you're asking for the waiver on the width of the road?
That's correct. And if you go out there and look at it, you will see a beautiful alley of trees. And if
No, I'm
Okay.
sorry, the two-way road.
the two-way road, that's right.
You know, I know I know
Yeah.
the.
Yes, that's
And the
correct.
stone wall there, you're not proposing widening that?
Oh, yes, there will have to be a widening of that stone wall in the opening there, like there will be down here. And there'll have to be a reconstruction of a portion of the stone wall here because of sight distance, and a portion of the stone wall here. I mean, we're aware of that. We're restoration of those stone walls is a part of the project.
And Amy, can you, at least for my benefit, talk about the benefits, the pros and cons of having 3, accesses, which are going to take what at least feels to me like maybe 90% of the traffic versus, 1?
The pros and cons?
Yeah, of 3 versus 1. I mean, are we better off with 1 or 3? And is it a big disadvantage to have 3 over 1, or is it an
The
advantage?
pros would be, as you're entering and exiting this site, the people that live in the development would have less delay because it's distributed at 3 different accesses depending on where they're coming in and going out. Actually, that's not true because these aren't connected. The cons would be to the motoring public on the roadway that they're taking access to, because when you have multiple driveways, that introduces conflicts at each of those locations.
So people are
you
going to
need
have to slow
be-
down or wait for a
well,
left-hand
slow
turn
down.
lane, or...
You need to be aware that vehicles may be pulling in front of you or turning right or left, or, so there's more conflicts that you need to be aware of
versus
on the
1
road.
or 2.
Or you could look at it as a traffic calming.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
it goes both ways, and it's, you could make an argument one way or the other on these things. And like I said, that's why I deferred to PennDOT to see what they wanted to do on this. I understand the historical nature of the lot. I understand the desire to keep that one-way entrance coming in. So those are other things that, we as a township would want to consider that PennDOT maybe wouldn't want to consider. Maybe they would be more concerned about their particular roadway and keeping the traffic moving.
And how about the length of the cul-de-sacs, which are, really, really long?
Well, I think they resolved that issue because they put in emergency accesses to allow a secondary access. That's the greatest If there's only one access into a particular roadway and there's no other way to get in there, then that's a problem. However, if there is an emergency access that's provided, be it through a gated or bollard, something along those lines, then I don't see it as a safety issue.
Let's turn to that and go into that a little bit more in depth, because that's one of the things that we did want to discuss tonight was under the waiver section, the cul-de-sac lengths. And we have the chart. Did everybody get the chart? Okay. Yeah, you should have just gotten it just now when you sat down. Do you have this chart? Yes. No, not you. Okay. So one of the waivers that the applicant is requesting from the code is to lengthen the required, to exceed the required maximum length for the cul-de-sacs. And we brought this up at our previous meeting. And I was hoping the applicant could take us through and just take us through on the map and show us
Maybe
which roads are
pull this
which.
off and let him pull back out then with the,
Like which is A, B, C, and D.
okay. Okay, David?
Maybe you have the plan, do you have the plan in the 5 sections?
Yes, I do, and I will get that.
Say again?
Which page?
Oh, would you like a hand mic? Would that be easier?
Yes. I got it.
Here you go.
The 50 scale plans are, start with sheet 7. They are
17.
17, I'm sorry. They go into a lot more detail than the overall plan, and I'm not sure that you're going to get as much information with the individual plans as you would over the overall.
Well, if you could use one of the simpler overall plans so that it's easy for us to read at a distance, that would be fine.
Yeah, I think that would be the best.
I can't remember what else there is.
Sheet 16 is the overall plan.
All right, so from this chart, could you show us where roads A, B, and F are?
There is a lot of information. I can go back to,
Let's go back to sheet 1.
I can go back, I think sheet 2 is a record plan. It shows a little bit, it's a little bit clearer.
Yeah, that's good.
May I just tell you, I think sheet 15 might be the best one, because it's color-coded by section.
It's color-coded by. okay, you
The
can do
sections that were, yeah, this is the one I was looking for.
Okay.
This is the,
So you see what,
I thought you asked for the section earlier.
no, yeah, I wanted to see the sections. So now we can say section,
Let's call them phases.
but the phases are tied to these roads, right?
Yes, they are.
That's the one that's going to, if anybody else doesn't, I think this might
That's
be the
fine.
most helpful to tie the roads to the phasing.
all right, so which is road A?
Road A is the cul-de-sac road in Phase 2. It is the road that parallels Newtown Road. It is the one that we had a discussion on a few minutes ago.
And that's the one that's 1,217 feet long.
Yes,
So it's the one that's, I know you just said this, but it's not the one that comes into the site to the, coming down on the page, it's the one that's parallel. That's what we're talking about?
Is it the village road?
it is the village road.
Okay. And that now has emergency access?
And, yes, we're proposing that at the tail end of that.
Okay, and that will be a permanent walking path with an emergency
That
built?
would be stabilized on either side
Stabilized
to
for
allow
emergency vehicles?
Correct.
Okay. And which is Road B?
Road B is the road that comes in off of Newtown Road that Road A ties
Okay.
into.
That's B.
This is B. This is the,
Well, let me just get this, figure out which one is B. Okay, and that one is proposed at 940 feet,
yes,
but there are only 4 houses on it.
correct.
Okay, what was your question, Susan?
Well, it's just, I'm trying to get, on Road A, are there any waivers? I was hoping to kind of approach it that way. Are there waivers for Road A?
Well, one of the waivers is the cul-de-sac length.
In addition to that?
Oh, yeah, if you look at this, you can see which ones need waivers. For instance,
We are
That would need the,
Other than the length.
no, I think you're fine on that one.
Other than the
Oh,
length.
no, the right-of-way proposed.
The
And what
right of
about,
wa-
No, the right-of-way is required and proposed is the same.
no, not on Road A.
We are proposing a 50-foot right-of-way.
Oh, back here.
Instead of a 60-foot right-of-way.
I'm sorry, I was looking at the
So that
cul-de-sac.
is-
And what about the cul-de-sac width?
The cul-de-sac is actually larger than what is required by the ordinance.
Okay.
The pavement.
Just circle the variances.
Thank you, that's perfect. I'm going to use my highlighter. Got it.
Okay, so then for Road B,
Just a second, let him circle the variances on A on this
okay,
chart so that if people want to follow it. So there are 2 circles with respect to Road A.
okay, and I'd like to add one more bit of information. For Road A, how many units are taking access off of that road?
15, I believe.
15,
And
yes.
for B, it was 4, right? Or
Correct.
5?
Yes.
Is there an existing one?
No, 4.
15, 4, okay.
Why is somebody saying 6?
Because they're counting the 2 that are really running on Road A, because they have front yards also under the ordinance on
Got it.
Road B.
Okay.
Okay. Are we still circling the,
Well, I am, but I'm just curious why on Road A, the cartway width only needed to be 24 curbed, but on Road B, it needed to be 28 and 24 curbed? The
No,
word saying
the re-
required cartway?
Required, I am, I'm uncertain of that. I think because of the first section here is a two-way road where the second section or the second portion is a cul-de-sac, and the cul-de-sac where it's not a cul-de-sac, it's required to be 28, where it's a cul-de-sac, it's required to be 24. We have a section of roadway coming in at the very beginning before the 2 cul-de-sac splits off. I'm looking at that as a conventional non-cul-de-sac road.
It's required to be 4 feet wide.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
From Newtown Road, it's required to be 4 feet wider.
Yes.
And then
So
once it becomes a cul-de-sac, it's 24.
Correct.
And
Okay.
would you circle the waivers on Road B? Okay, and that's 4 instead of 2, and what are the 2 additional ones?
Again, we're proposing a 40-foot right-of-way instead of the required 60. We're providing 24-foot roadway width at the upper end and a 20-foot roadway width through the cul-de-sac instead of the 28 and 24. The cul-de-sac radius by ordinance is 45 feet. We're providing a radius of the paved cul-de-sac of 40, and the cul-de-sac length is the 4th item.
Quickly, Susan, to address your question for the width of the roadways. In cul-de-sacs in the R1 and AC district are 24 feet in width, not 28.
Right.
and
Okay,
is there
thank
any
you.
emergency access for the tip of this road, of B?
No, for those 4 units,
So if
no.
that road was blocked, what do those people do?
What do you, they can certainly walk out because it's open and behind them, but from the standpoint of driving through, there's no place to take an emergency access at that point. You don't abut any roads. There is no development that is near that portion of the property.
And what's the length of Road B to where it meets Road A? Because that's the portion that won't have any alternate access.
Right. What's the distance from Newtown Road to, yeah,
300 feet.
so it would be,
So from the point
640
where there's no
feet.
access in,
It'd be
it's less
six.
than 800 feet?
that's correct.
Okay. And does anyone mind if we skip the one that's 811 feet because that's so close to the actual requirement?
I'd like to know which one it is
Yeah, which one is Road C, please?
and how many houses are served by it.
6. Right here. Didn't I see?
No, this
Oh.
is Road C here.
I'm sorry, which
And I
one is it?
believe. Maybe C, I'm sorry.
C.
Road C is the cul-de-sac at the terminus end here. This is all Road C. So the cul-de-sac at the very end, at this point here. And Phase 4 at the
Okay.
lower
So
end.
how does that get to be 811? Where are you counting the cul-de-sac from? That you're
From-
saying?
From the intersection here.
Is that how we do it?
Wait a second, it's coming in off of
Yes,
theirs?
that's how it's calculated.
Even though if you go back farther, it's part of one loop.
You would subtract it from the total length to come up with what part is cul-de-sac on B. So the
I'm-
length,
I must not be clear which one is Road C. Could you line it again?
Road C is this road down along here.
That one, okay. So at what point are you saying it's the beginning of a cul-de-sac?
At this point here.
Down to the end?
Yes,
Down.
down to the end.
And that's how we do it, Roger? We don't count the whole thing because there's only one access?
No, it's just counted from
that
the
point.
the very end point there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's dual access in the other parts of the road, except for the little part that I guess is right by the mansion.
How is there dual access? That is because of the one-way road that provides, that goes to the mansion?
Yes.
Well, I guess you could
So-
use that in an emergency.
You could, however, I would tell you that, how is that not, the length of that road not appropriate to be counting from the point at which the one-way mansion road meets it? Because
Once that's blocked.
because once that's blocked, and we have bunches of streets blocked tonight in Radnor, trees all over the place are down, there's a huge list on the website. So from that point where the one-way road meets the two-way road, and all those houses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, there's like 20 houses down there. If a tree falls across that roadway, all those people back there, which is way more than 800 feet, are blocked in.
Susan, let me follow up with her
Yes.
question first. How we interpret that is by the definition of cul-de-sac in the subdivision and land development ordinance.
Okay. But
But I think we're not concerned right now about the definition. We're looking right now at the
Well,
practical.
Susan
Yeah,
was
no, no,
asking
no.
me why
Yeah,
we
no, no, I got
count
it.
it from there, and that's
So,
why,
okay.
because as it's defined, it's from the
It's rare.
intersection of two streets.
okay.
So is there a way to put in emergency access from that cul-de-sac? To get out to Darby Hill, or to get to one of the old driveways on the property, or is there an option there?
I have an idea here.
Nasty slopes there.
That
Susan?
is, that, if you go and look at the grades, that's a
It's very steep.
very steep drop.
Okay, but just recognize that to me, I mean, Roger, thank you for clarifying the definition of the cul-de-sac for that last little stem there. But to me, that's a third of the development, both in area and number of houses, that one of those big trees falling, and there's a lot of people stuck back there, and no access in. That's a lot. And a long distance, of walking, traveling, whatever, to get out of there. I don't even have a good sense of how far that is.
I have a
but-
suggestion for an alternate exit in emergency, but I'm not sure what the elevation is. Stay on that last page where you were there. Oh, your elevation's here, okay. Kind of on 1, 2, 3, 4. At the end of the fourth house there, where you have open space in that circle area, go up, keep going up. Keep going, yeah, there, where that open space is there?
Yes.
Could you cut over to that opening between the two houses to go to the other
Yeah.
road there? Or is there no road?
That's the ravine.
There is a ravine in there? Okay.
I think
can we
that as
just
a
make a
group,
suggestion?
what we could do is just say we have a problem with that, we're concerned, and pass it on. Yeah, that's fine. And then the other one that would need a waiver for a cul-de-sac length is Road F, and that's the one at the top of the rye field, correct?
That is correct. Road F is the cul-de-sac that goes along the edge of the rye field.
And how many houses are there?
9.
9.
This is the first time I've seen this, so I'm still taking in a lot of information
Okay.
on it. Skipping over D and E,
But we'll get back to this on the other waivers. We're just talking about the cul-de-sacs right now.
just cul-de-sacs. Okay.
We just started with the cul-de-sacs because we were on that topic.
Okay.
Okay.
And Road F has an emergency access.
Which one's
At the far end.
Okay.
It comes down through Hickory Hall.
So they have a fire truck accessible emergency access.
Yes.
Okay, anything else on the cul-de-sacs?
What's the next one? H.
There's an H.
But they're meeting the requirement.
We're not meeting the
Oh,
requirement.
I'm sorry.
For the,
No, but just on the cul-de-sac
On
length.
the cul-de-sac
On the
length, we're
cul-de-sac
meeting
I just
length.
wanted
We're meeting
to
that.
finish with the cul-de-sacs. Yes, okay. Okay, so we're on this page, let's go on to the next section. And again, we don't have to solve these problems, we have to decide how we
Okay,
feel about them.
could you tell
and
us where
what
H
comments we
is?
want to make.
H is a small cul-de-sac.
Right there.
Right
Okay,
in
thank
here.
you.
Okay, where is Road D, please?
Road D is this road.
That's the one-way road.
I'm sorry, that's Road E. Road D is this small private
Okay.
roadway at this point here. Right down in phase.
And that will remain private?
Yes.
That has one existing home and 3 more to be built, or 4 more to be built?
There will be 4,
3 new.
3
Three
new,
new.
1 existing.
Okay, and then the one-way road is E,
Yes.
and
that
that's
is-
existing.
That is existing.
All right. F we talked about, where's G?
She's got to be this.
Yeah.
Why are you making the Mansion Road, that you think is hardly ever going to be used, a public road?
We're making all the roads within the community public.
Not all of them, I
Well, we have
and
2 which are
D.
basically are more or less common driveways than anything else. They're small roads.
Roger.
But they are,
And/or Steve, let me just, before I forget, public roads have to be plowed, correct?
That is correct.
So you're proposing that the Mansion Road be a one-way, hardly ever used road, public, that we now have to plow?
And for which you get liquid fuels and have no
I
houses on
understand
it.
that, it's just, but it's, you're saying that it's hardly ever used. Why not just make it a private road? They were saying tonight they envision it hardly being used, and that's the reason that they want to keep it one way, that they don't, that you envision the road coming off of Abraham's being the main access for the 20-something homes, down here.
I expect that to be used basically additionally for access to the mansion.
I appreciate that. It seems like an odd road to make public,
It doesn't seem like an odd road to make public to me.
for the amount that they were saying.
Well, if they have an event or something, I mean, it's,
Yeah, it doesn't bother me either.
it's fine. All right. So where is Road G? That's the other half of,
Road G is this section in Phase 4.
okay. And H we talked about. And I, where's I?
And I is Phase 5. It is the,
And that comes off of Darby Paoli?
that is pretty much the existing driveway coming into the site.
the
We're
driveway
making
that's
it-
there now.
We're making it a private road. Road I,
It's the one that comes into the barn.
down by the barn,
The big
Phase
barn?
5.
Okay. All right, so since we're on this sheet, let's talk about the other requested waivers. Well, why don't we start with the road width, okay? Who has comments or questions about the road width?
Maybe you can just tell us again, basically you're going from 60 to 40 feet.
The right-of-way, pretty much, except for Road A, which will be 50 feet, we're proposing 40 feet right-of-way for all the other roads.
And I'd like to ask for staff's comment on that. I can't remember from the memo, but how do we feel about that on the staff?
From the staffer's standpoint, the right-of-way width is adequate. So this is a newer development, which is going to have utilities and so forth. They're going to be installed. As far as right-of-way for us in a public works and engineering standpoint is we look at it for some future project. And in the newer developments, there tends to be less chance of that because they're designed to today's standards. So I don't see an issue with the right-of-way widths on those streets.
Are they sufficient to add sidewalks down the road?
If that ever
Literally.
came to fruition, yes, it is.
Okay. So the right-of-way you're okay with?
That's correct.
Right.
Okay, and can I get, what is the staff's position or comments about the width of the roads? We've gone both basically to 24 in some places, and, yeah, cartways we're talking now, and 20 with no curbs in other places. I know that the purpose of that was to maintain the character of the site the way it is now as much as possible. 20-foot roads, cartways are certainly not unheard of.
By the way, Madam Chairman, it's also the character of the neighborhood. We've measured all of the roads within the neighborhood, and they're on that table that's on the
Okay,
chart.
thank you.
Madam Chairman, from a roadway width standpoint, we've been preaching sustainable development all along, and we know that this is a unique project in and of itself. But to be able to get to reduce the use of curbs in a development and to get some runoff into the roadway swales right off the bat, as opposed to constantly having water travel down the curb, through inlets, through pipes, that's a good thing. That's something I support. In general, less impervious surface is another thing we support, or I support, on a project like this or other projects given their specificity. So in road width and the lack of curbs, I support that actually on this project.
Thank you.
Can you weigh in on the reduced right-of-way? He just did. I mean, respect to that, does it handle what the design is? I mean, do you feel like you're comfortable that we don't need to come back later and expand the swales and?
Mr. Fiorello is going to design those swales, those roadside, that cross-section of the roadway to accommodate what is necessary. So even if part of that is in the right-of-way and out of the right-of-way, those homeowners are going to be responsible to maintain that line and grade that goes through there. So the fact that it's in the right-of-way or out of the right-of-way would be immaterial, in my opinion, on that.
So-
If I can point out to the board, Radnor is one of the few communities around here that requires a 60-foot right-of-way, where most of the communities require a 50-foot. So our reduction to 40 with the limited roadways still gives plenty of room to put in swales and utilities and still provide for future
Okay.
improvements.
Steve, Monday night, I think it was Monday, we had an applicant present us with an approach to the stormwater management where they were specifically putting in curbs to direct water to a stormwater management system. And it made all the sense in the world. And now tonight, we're doing the exact opposite.
Well, if you remember what he was talking about, there was a specific erosion problem at Cabrini along one of the cartways. So I think as a remedy to that, Rob Lambert, the design engineer, said, here's an opportunity as part of this project to redirect some of that water away from an eroded area and take it to the inlets and the pipes. But if, even from a future maintenance standpoint, reduction of physical infrastructure, if we don't have to have as many pipes and have as many inlets, that's a better thing for us being Radnor Township and having to maintain. If the first part of a rainfall can infiltrate into those roadside swales, that's another good thing, so that we're not constantly transporting water to certain areas. I mean, they're needed, and Dave Fiorillo has designed them, but from a sustainability standpoint, this is a good thing.
Okay, but here's my concern. The combination of no curbs, more narrow roadways, big cars, no controlled stormwater, that what you're calling a swale today, 10 years from now, they're going to be calling an eroded road. And then we're going to have public roads, because most of these are public, that are going to be broken on the sides and falling apart, and no curbs, and
Well, the one thing that we're providing here is the widened right-of-way on each side to create the swales. Those swales will be designed in accordance with the regulations to take that water. And at the same time, as Steve pointed out, that initial runoff that goes off the side of the road will infiltrate into the soil instead of being picked up right-of-way and taking through a pipe system, which does not give the opportunity to infiltrate into the ground.
I drive most every one of these roads on this list, Newtown, Darby, Godfrey for sure. Take my life into my hands on that one. Church and Abraham's. I agree that they are all narrow roads. They are all narrow roads with significant erosion.
They are also narrow roads with large embankments on either side. There are no swales along the edge of the roadways.
There are also narrow roads that have big cars driving on the edges, breaking down the sides of the roads. I mean,
So I think you're talking about the volume of traffic you're talking about on Darby Peeler Road versus an internal.
Well,
The
I'm
road
not-
is like exponential.
that's a fair comment, but I'm just trying to think down I wanted Steve to weigh in on the combination of a narrow road and no curb and no stormwater management on the sides, that we could be
I don't
looking
agree
at-
that there's no
Susan,
stormwater management.
There is stormwater management. The swales are the stormwater management, and they're designed
swales, instead of
and they are
curbing-
constructed to maintain that swale shape.
There will
and
be
to
inlets
carry
within
the-
the swales to collect that water also. It's
But-
just that it's not running along a gutter, it's running along a grassed waterway adjacent to the roadway.
Right, so that grass swale is now the method of conveyance of that stormwater. So there's a
And the
chance for
less
some of it to
pavement, the less
infiltrate.
stormwater.
Well, I understand that,
goes in
but
the
when
inlet.
people are driving on roads that are a little bit too narrow and packing down the dirt on the sides of the road and the grass on the sides of the road, it will just become compacted and eroded.
These roads are the same width as, in essence, Newtown Road and Darby Paoli Road.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Susan,
Yes?
the 20-foot width is not going to be a problem for two vehicles passing each other in either direction, and you're not going to get that shoulder breakdown that I think you're thinking about here. When you get onto a higher functional class like Darby Paoli and Newtown Road, sometimes you get that type of thing where you get the deterioration towards the shoulder area. But in a development like this, you're looking for the entire development, you're looking at a total of like 890 vehicles, which is less than you get in a peak hour on Newtown Road, Darby Paoli Road, and some of the higher functioning roads that you have around here that are 20 feet. And I understand what you're saying, but I don't think it's of concern internally.
I can be thinking of Godfrey and Hopeton and have the same two concerns, but that's fine. Thank you for answering the questions.
I think we should have a special meeting about Godfrey Road, though, at another time. My God.
The other thing that, just real quickly, the swales are part of the stormwater management system that there is an agreement with the township that requires the homeowners association to perpetually maintain that. So it's not like there's nobody responsible for them. There is.
Okay, could we touch on the cul-de-sac radius provided, the waiver for that? Does the staff have any comments on the 35-foot width for that? And what happened with the safety fire people? Did they agree to that? I'm sorry.
The one thing I wanted to say about the conversation we just had, the only concern, the reason I brought up with the right-of-way is it gonna impact you if you increase that right-of-way to what's required? Because then that would allow for later, if we had to expand the swales or whatever, the right-of-way would be available. Is there a reason why you're not providing that right-of-way?
One of the reasons, we don't feel it's necessary with the narrow roads, for the one thing. With regard to our open space areas, you don't include the area within the right-of-way, so that we would have less, if you would, number-wise, open space. It would still be green, it would still be green area, it just wouldn't count as open space because of the calculations.
But you're well over on those numbers anyhow.
Yes, we are.
Would you consider putting that right-of-way back and keeping the smaller road design? Would that be a potential?
I don't think we need 60-foot. We've had commercial developments, for example, where the greenhouse was, I forget the name of it. I think we gave them 40-foot right-of-way there, and that's on a main street.
Chardin.
Pardon me?
Chardin.
Yes. And as I recall, I think, didn't we give them a 40-foot right-of-way there?
I think, was
As
it
opposed to
615
60.
Newtown?
No, we're
It's
talking about
probably 40.
Jardin, Conestoga and West Wayne.
I was the engineer in Jordan. Jordan was a internal private, there was no street
No, I'm
right-of-ways.
talking about along the
You're
main
talk-
thoroughfare.
That was an easement that was granted along the width. I think in that case, there was a 60-foot right-of-way, but because it was a major arterial, the code required a 60-foot an 80-foot right-of-way.
And we cut back, though.
Yes,
Yes,
that was cut back to the 60.
All right. That's what I
But
thought.
again, it was
I
a
know we-
major
yeah,
arterial and not a local street.
yeah.
And
the other-
also, Kathy, it's just at that 2 acres. I mean, basically, it would have had an odd right-of-way, and the rest of the all developed property
Yeah,
around it
nobody
would have
else
been-
had that.
Right.
But this, in this area here, it's not a dense development. I don't think they need, or we need the 60-foot. They said the homeowners association is going to maintain the swales, so it's not like Radnor Township has to go in and maintain the swales.
What I'm saying is, I'm happy to see swales, I'm happy to see the smaller road. If it's not going to change your design or take away from what you're doing, if the right-of-way can be maintained with what's required, that would allow for flexibility down the road if something unforeseen
Well,
happens.
let me-
That's just, if you'd consider that.
Let me just give you my 2 reactions to that. First of all is none of these roads connect off-site at the other end, so that none of these are potential connector roads or even local roads that are going to take traffic other than in this site. So the need to substantially widen a street, we also know that there's that
But no, I agree. I'm not foreseeing widening of the road. I'm just saying to maintain the swales that are being proposed.
But the swales are going to basically be on homeowners association sides of the property. There are a couple of places where there are houses on both sides and there'll be a swale, but that will be the obligation of the homeowners association as well to maintain that. So from the standpoint of providing extra right-of-way, all you're really doing is making the lot smaller.
So the only thing that the township is accepting dedication of is the roadway itself, not the swales.
That's correct. The swales
So
are maintained.
if they
Swales-
needed to be widened, it would be within the homeowner association land. That's what you're saying. Okay, I understand.
One more point of clarification. Would it be correct to say if you had the wider right-of-way that some of the maintenance of the swales would be shifted to the township?
I actually don't think that's the case, because I think under the stormwater management agreement that the township has, where the homeowners association is going to be responsible for them regardless.
Well, does that mean under your proposed right-of-way where are the swales? Are they in the right-of-way?
Yes, they are within the graded area adjacent to the roadway within the right-of-way, yes.
But if it had to be expanded into beyond the right-of-way, that would happen.
As
There's
part of
no-
as part of our design, we will be grading the swales. For the most part, they will be within the right-of-way. If they extend beyond, they will be extending beyond. It will be part of the grading for the roadway that would be accomplished when the roads were constructed.
Julia?
Yes.
If I could just add quickly, that the swales are a component of the stormwater management system that, as Mr. Snyder said, would be under agreement with the homeowners association for them to maintain. The township is not taking dedication of any portions of the stormwater management systems, the underground basins and the other facilities that they put in. And this is a conveyance component of that facility, so that would be part of that.
Okay, I want to shift a little bit here. We can get back to this. I'm sure this is going to come up again during public comment. But could you put up Phase 3 so we could talk about that and talk about the buffer?
Sure.
And everybody got the note, well, we just got the note today, right, from the arborist? I mean, it was emailed to us, but does everybody have it?
Can we see that?
We just got it.
Thank you.
So we'll-
You know something I had, Mr. Summers, that was out in front. So I picked
So you have that, okay. There's two issues here. One is, I would like to bring up again that personally, I'm not satisfied with the siting of the houses along the top of what we're calling the rye field. I think that there are too many there, given that the conditional use hearing, I have it here somewhere, the very first point that was put on as a conditional use was that those ute sheds would be protected and supported. I don't think this plan is doing that. I don't think we're meeting that conditional use requirement. In my mind, and I want to hear from the rest of the board, of course, I think that it's like the last 4 houses on that cul-de-sac especially will impact the views from the Darby, Paoli, Newtown corner. I understand that there's a proposed buffer to buffer those areas. My concern is that, you know, those houses are up on a hill. It's going to be, the buffer's not going to be perfect. And the other thing is that the view, protecting the view isn't just not showing the houses. Once you put the houses up, you lose the view beyond the houses. Because right now, when you're on that road, that very impressive view, that area that the township has worked so hard to try to preserve, the impact of that view isn't just the field. I mean, the field is great, but the impact of that view is the field, the woods beyond, the sky beyond. So when you put up a big buffer, because you're going to put houses there, yes, you won't see much of the houses. They won't be as intrusive with a buffer, but you're still losing the view that's there now. Regina and John, could you keep it to a whisper, please? So I still feel very strongly that I could not recommend that these houses be sited at that location. I don't know if other members of the board feel that way, or if they had questions about the buffer itself, which apparently the arborist has been working with the applicant on. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The arborist met with you and...
I'm sorry, Lisa Thomas is not here tonight.
That's fine.
But I can give you, the history of it was that we first provided a buffer that was primarily evergreen. We
Right.
looked at it. We realized that it was totally out of character with the rest of the property. So we designed a buffer that was reforestation and like the woods.
Great.
We took them, we met with the arborist, we met with the Shade Tree Commission. Everybody that we've met with has said, we don't like the evergreen one, we like the reforestation. And so it was, we left the choice up to the township representatives. And the township representatives unanimously have said to us, we want your natural reforestation plan. And the arborist has said, here is the best way to achieve that. So the planning schedule and the size of the trees and so forth were dictated by him. So from our standpoint, we think what we've done is provided options to the township, and the township has selected the one that they think is the best and most natural, and that's what we have gone with for that. And
Okay.
we endorse that because we believe also, with respect to this property, which has very few evergreens, that it is that the idea is to create that same forest feel, that same natural feel. It may take a few more years to get there, but that's what you will
Okay.
eventually get.
I think that's great. I'm very happy with the buffer that they've designed. I certainly would defer to both the arborist and the landscape architect. My own feeling is that the buffer is not enough for that corner, to preserve the view sheds in that corner. But if anyone has any questions about the buffer itself, as a buffer, I'm fine with it. Does anyone have any comments on that?
I made a comment at the prior meeting, and, I understand the arborist is looking at this as how fabulous this will look to gradually stage in over 10, 15, 20 years. In the meantime, maybe, a considerable number of residents will have died before it comes to fruition. The 5-foot whips still doesn't make sense to me as a tree planting in a buffer.
And I understand it, and quite frankly, we're going with what the township's asked us to do. I mean, we didn't have 5-foot whips in the plan that we initially presented, and we were asked to change things to those 5-foot whips. They have much greater.
Right, but as a group, we may
Okay,
decide to
yeah.
ask for something else.
Yeah,
So
I
that's okay.
understand.
All right,
As a
thank you.
group, we may ask for a 5-year plan instead of a 20-year plan.
So I haven't looked at the actual landscape architectural plan of the buffer. I think that if we just made a comment that we are concerned about, while we understand that this will be a beautiful reforestation area, we do also want some upfront screening, and for that to be taken into consideration by the township when they work with the applicant to finalize that design. Does that sound good?
It sounds great when there's a 30-foot house and a 5-foot tree, then a 5-foot tree is inadequate.
Okay.
But you also asked the question about the trees, about the houses themselves. And I guess I would echo in my comment is that in the time since the conditional use approval, the plan has changed slightly, not dramatically, but slightly. And so it's disappointing to me that it didn't change in a way that further supported the first condition of the conditional use. And I look at it and say, I still think that that can and should happen. And maybe it's even a case of making a decision to put a couple of those investment lots down in that area, switch it out with something else. The fact of the matter is the plan has changed slightly since the conditional use.
Not in that area.
Not in that area, in other areas, that's right.
The only area is here.
I understand that we'd like to
Okay,
see it change in a
keep
way
with the
that.
board discussion, please.
We'd like to see it change in a way that continues to benefit more than just the people who are buying inside there. We'd like to see it change in a way that continues to support and benefit the conditional use, the first conditional use, item, which was to preserve the view shed, and supports, that the township is undertaking a big expense in buying that view shed.
Okay. If there's anything else about the buffers or the view sheds, I'd like to go to public comment and see other issues may arise when we do that. Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay. Okay, we'd like to go to public comment. Thank you all for waiting and for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. Please, is there a paper there, Sue, for people to write their names down? Do you want one? Well, I've got one here. Thank you. Thank you. Please write down your name. And do they need the address there, Sue, or what do you want? Just the street that you live on and your name when you come up to give public comment. Thank you. Anything. Well, anything on this site.
Good evening, Leslie Morgan, 12 Farm Road. I'm very interested in the design of the buffer on the rye field. And Julia, did I hear you right when you said you hadn't looked at the actual design?
We haven't seen it.
Okay.
No, I don't. As a planning commission, we don't do tree design for the. We talk about buffers and the purposes we want them to
I believe it was presented in the
serve.
first planning commission, and that's why I was a little confused.
Well, I understand that it's changed because of the conversations with the arborist.
Okay, I may be losing my way, and please correct me if I'm wrong. In the first planning commission, about a month ago, I think it was, there was a landscape plan that showed no conifers, and it was all deciduous. And I believe when I looked at it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, maybe we could even get to that page. That would be helpful.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank
Let
you
me
so
just
much.
explain what I said. When I said that we had a buffer plan of conifers, that was when we were preparing the plan and we met with staff to get their reaction to what we were designing before we submitted the application. You don't have it? Okay.
I may have parts of it.
It's the landscape plan that was prepared by Clack and Thomas Panzak. Dave only has the plans he prepared.
So we never saw that plan.
What?
We never saw that
Oh,
plan. It
no,
was
no,
pre-
that plan was part of the submission.
the
Oh, with the evergreens? No, you never saw that. That
Right.
was never submitted.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
just a section.
Yeah.
I just have the section, and then I have this as well. This is a smaller version. Would you like this? Because this is,
Leslie, put it on 180 degrees.
okay, hold on. You guys have a lot of stuff here. And if this was not in the submission, I got this from the township. If we could zoom in on this area.
You speak into the microphone,
I am. I'm getting back to the mic. Thank you. If we could, thank you. That is what we were shown in the first planning submission. As I read this, and I may be wrong, and I don't mind being wrong at all, it's about 108 trees or plantings. The largest third is 2.5 caliper trees. Anything under that is less than 2.5 caliper. I so agree with you, Skip. This is a travesty. Julia, you, throughout the conditional use, you said you'd been out there and measured, and that we would see the tips of a few houses on the roofs, and that the buffer would support what a buffer screen is supposed to.
I'm sorry,
Okay?
Leslie, are you saying that I said that?
Yes, absolutely. You introduced this plan and said that you'd been out there with balloons and everything.
Actually, can we just
Okay,
focus
Leslie,
on the
that's
issue at
not
hand?
true, and I'd like you to continue with your comments.
Okay. Anyways, we were educated through the conditional use that the buffer would be 100 feet, and that it would provide enough screening and variety that from the view shed, from the pedestrian view shed, which is the roads that intersect at Darby Paoli and Newtown, per the hearing officer, would be taken into account. Not only the siting of the houses within the lots, that's one. Number two is the landscape of the buffer would be enough that would be substantial enough to shield us to the maximum degree from our perspective, meaning the residents' perspective on the roads, okay? That is how I understand the writing to be. This is 108. All I'm here tonight is to show you a few things that are standard buffers and what it would equate if this was even designed in a standard buffered in Pennsylvania, townships all across Pennsylvania from Parksburg to Abington Township. They have pictures in most of them. Radnor doesn't have pictures of standard buffers, and that's why it's been a little hard for me to understand what would be the number of plantings if this were normalized. So, if you'll allow me. Okay. If we can zoom in on to this. I got this picture off Google because I love Google. But this is just a standard buffer, and this is what we see in other townships across all of America. They'll go into their screen buffer, and they'll say, okay, if you have a 20-foot wide one, this is what it should look like. You can interpose your plant list and design it as you will, but they sort of show the number. So it's 100 foot by then 20 feet, or they show the 100 foot by 50 feet, okay? So this would be your 50-foot width. Ours is 100 at Ardrossan on that ridge, and that's 100 wide. So just by the math, what is proposed here, and I don't know exactly the length, but Mr. Snyder had said it's a few thousand feet, so I used 2,000 in my math to equate it to this being 100 feet deep and 100 feet wide. Okay. If you use this, which is 50 feet deep, the Ardrossan buffer is supposed to be 100 feet deep.
Leslie, please, if you back off from the mic a little bit, we can hear you better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, and then I'll use this. Okay, so if we use just this math on a standard buffer, which appears all over, and it may be in our code. Steve Norsini said it is in our code. This would be, right here is 60-some plants, okay? That's trees, that's conifers mixed in with deciduous, with bushes, and all different kind of varieties, okay? But if you use this math to this, they're shy about 2,400 plants. If this is 2,000 feet, and I have no idea if it is, but it's something. So I used his words, which was a few thousand feet. I don't know what it is. But it's 100 feet deep and a few thousand. This would equate
Excuse me,
to
I'm
this.
sorry, I have to interrupt you for just
Yeah.
1 second. I'd like to ask the applicant, when you show the buffer on this scale of a plan, is this meant to show where the buffer is, or is this meant to be the final detailed plan of the buffer?
I believe, and you can go look at the map on the smaller scale, which is this scale. I believe that is an intended planning plan.
That's your planting plan. Thank you.
And that's what was reviewed by the Shade Tree Commission and the
And is
arborists.
that what you used, Leslie, for your comparison?
Yes, I
Thank you.
used these two items at Adrossan and then found standard ones. I also went to the last Shade Tree Commission meeting, which was last week, I believe, and it is my impression, I think, Doug, you were there as well. Okay, well, there was somebody there from, I forget which board, but anyways, they said that they did not approve their plan. They were shown their plan before they went to preliminary, which is what we're going through now. And they didn't know about the judge's decision. None of them had that. I gave them all copies, by the way. And I said that some of us, when we saw this very sparse, 100% deciduous, I'll be dead, my kid might be dead kind of buffer, that they seemed to want to hear what I had to say. That's all I can say. And I am hoping that after spending the taxpayers' money, that you are stewards. I am counting on that. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, just in our minutes from the Shade
Thank you,
Tree
Leslie.
Commission, it was noted as approved. The Shade Tree Commission did approve it. And that's what's in the approved minutes of the Shade Tree Commission, for better or worse.
Can you say what date that was? Because I looked at the minutes today, Steve, and it said that they reviewed it.
Mrs. Jones can get that for you perhaps after the meeting. I don't have that for you right now.
Did you have that in writing to you? I understand.
We don't get the minutes
Okay.
of the Shade Tree meetings.
Okay.
And she might be confused because we were at the Shade Tree Commission twice. First for them to review it, and then second, they approved it.
That's
Thank you.
Wednesday, May 28th.
Is that the approval date, Stephen, or is that the review date?
That was the meeting. I'm interpreting from Mrs. Jones as she gives us.
None of them had the decision from the hearing officer, Bolo. Thank you.
The review was in February, the approval was in May.
Okay.
you were there for
We're going to continue with public comment. Thank you, everybody.
was the last one.
Come on up.
I am Martin Snyder. I live on Newtown Road, and our property is accessed by a driveway which runs, if my finger shows on there, right up here. And I wanted to just make a general suggestion that why don't we consider, the township consider, one two-way road coming out on Abraham's Lane to treat the entire subdivision. That would put any onus of backups and jam-ups on the people in the subdivision rather than on everyone else. I would point to Lissitor, which Toll Brothers is doing, which people should take a look at. I mean, I know there's been a threat that this could be Toll Brothers. Toll Brothers is really doing a nice job, I think. Lots of great screening and so on. They have 400 units in there, two-way roads coming out, and that's it, for 400 units, rather than 5 roads on 252. So that's just a general suggestion. I have a specific point to make about this cul-de-sac here, which parallels our driveway. And there was a question about the safety of that without an egress. And I would point out that the alleged buffer in here consists mostly of I would say at least half dead or dying trees of some size. And they fall over with some regularity. We had one across our driveway last night, which was completely dead and just from that area, and have had them fairly regularly in the past. So unless they did something with that buffer, which I understand nothing is being done with, that road is fairly in harm's way. There's also a stream across here, which is not shown on the plan. It's about here, that runs all the way across.
Let me get the landscape plan so that you can use
It looks the same, but there's a stream just about here that runs across our drive and on into the properties on Atterbury Road. And it concerns me a little bit to hear about another road being built up here with no water management of any sort other than a passive system. If you go out to Newtown Road and go from this point down towards Conestoga Road, I've been there 40-some years, and 2 drainage systems have been put in by the state on the right-hand side. They've dug up in a very small right-of-way they have and put in gravel beds down to the stream. And that road is an exercise in driving while aquaplaning in a heavy rain, perpetually. I mean, it's not a joke. You go out there in a heavy rain, there's an inch of water on the road. I mean, it's really disastrous. And I think that's what may happen with no real water management system on these smaller roads. I think I had some other remarks, but I think that's all I'll say. But it would be worth looking at this buffer here in relation to what really is happening, and it would be, I think, worth considering the two-way road to alleviate some of the traffic burden on the neighboring residents.
Martin, can you sign that yellow piece of paper there?
I don't see one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Leslie, did you steal our sign-in sheet?
Nobody signed it.
We'll sign first.
Sure.
Sue gave us one job, and that was to get everybody to sign in.
Does she want our emails on this?
No, just your name and what street you live on would be great.
Martin, you want me to sign for you? Is that,
Thank you.
is it SNY?
Yes, it is.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you. Other public comment?
Hi, my name's Phil Graham. I live on Newtown Road. I have several concerns. First of all, there's a lot been said about the national standard as regards traffic. And to be honest with you, I don't know why we even listen to the national standard. I mean, I know it's something that we perhaps need to refer to, but we live in a pretty unique situation here. And I think that when you make your decision, you have to look at the way the roads are here and perhaps disregard the national standard. I don't think it's appropriate for our area. Susan's experience with traffic in the area is pretty much similar to mine. And I think at the last meeting, there was a mention of the queue of school buses that there would be at the end of one of these roads. Pick any one. The main one, whatever letter name it is, has over a dozen houses. You're not planning any walkways. The roads are going to be narrower than usual. You're going to have a school bus stop on Newtown Road. The kids are either going to get in their parents' cars and be driven, and they're going to sit there and wait at the end of Newtown Road for the bus to come by, or else they're going to attempt to walk across other people's front lawns and or down the road. It's ridiculous. I'll move on. Road I noted down, is one that goes into the barn. A lot has been said about there not being a possibility of access to Derby Paoli Road from the main site for other properties up in the northeast area. That simply isn't true. There is an existing road which could easily be widened, and to be honest, I don't know why all of you have not walked through. Some of you perhaps have, but you should be very familiar with this property. There are existing roads, paths, walkways that have been used for hundreds of years, and there is a perfectly good track which has always gone all the way down into Derby Paoli Road. Now, I understand that it can't be used according to national standards because there are rather a lot of bends in the road in Derby Paoli. But to say that there is no access there directly in, it just simply isn't true. And there is no reason why, with today's engineering possibilities, that you can't build a roadway into an area where it is steep. We have plenty of hills in this area. We drive up and down hills all the time. We're not in horses and carts anymore. You can make a cutting in there, which won't be seen because it's surrounded by whatever. It's just a cutting into the hillside, into Derby Paoli Road. Everything that this developer is doing is about saving money, whether it's storm management or walkways or narrow roads or half a dozen trees instead of 200, 300 trees. If you spend a bit of money, you can create roads. You can cut into the field and use existing tracts that all interconnect. So I just don't buy it. There's been a lot of mention about homeowners associations and how their responsibilities and how they have a lot of responsibilities and they will be taking care of this, that, and the other. The truth is they don't. You only have to look at the Church Farm development off Church Road, where there is a public right-of-way, a public pathway that hasn't been maintained this year. You can't even see it. You don't even know it's a pathway anymore. That is typical of a homeowners association. They disregard stuff because it costs money. Somebody has to keep an eye on them, and I'm not sure whether the township has any recourse to make homeowners associations do what they're supposed to do. But it's another task that somebody has to look at. So to say that homeowners associations will be taking care of that isn't entirely true. Now, perhaps this may be a better managed development. Let's hope it is. But on past record, I have my doubts.
Well, let me interrupt you just to check with our staff. What is the process for following up with homeowners associations on requirements?
Well, typically what we'll do is, once a plan's approved, homeowners association is set up, there'll be agreements between the township and the homeowners association in terms of what their responsibilities are for the development, such as what we talked about tonight, the stormwater, if there's some landscaping or some buffer plantings, that'll be laid out in almost like a management agreement that the township will have the right to enforce. If they don't maintain what they're supposed to maintain, we'll have the right to inspect, and then we'll have the right to enforce. That's pretty typical with this kind of a development.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, John. In your experience in the last 12 months, has the township taken any homeowners association to task, so to speak?
No, but we've had requests from homeowners associations of projects that were approved 20 or 25 years ago to do things with their land that they're not able to do under the plan that was approved at the time and under the regulations, such as, can we build in our open space? Can we do something else with it other than look at it and mow it? So, there's the regulations 20 years ago in this township, there wasn't a whole lot. I mean, there weren't separate agreements or like a declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions. You had the plan, you had plan notes, and you might have an easement or two. So, but I've done literally, not hundreds, but a lot of similar types of agreements. So you're not just relying on the plan restrictions, you have a separately recorded document that spells out what the obligations are. I've rarely had to enforce any of these things with homeowners associations. I mean, unless it comes to the attention of the township by a homeowner or a resident that's next to the property. I can think of a handful of times in the last 25 years I've had to do something with a HOA, but never in this township.
I'm sorry for the digression. Please continue.
So now I know who to
Yeah, talk to John Rice.
talk to. Okay. Like you, I'm concerned about the view sheds, but perhaps not the same view shed as you. Most of us in the Radnor Taxpayers Association live on or around Newtown Road. The views that we have there certainly are not being maintained in any respect. The trees are totally transparent in the winter, and we have fabulous views. The minute that village area appears, we'll see houses. That's the end of it. It's back-to-back houses. It's horrific. Suddenly, instead of driving into the countryside as you go along Newtown Road, there's a new city. But the joke is that that area is, correct me if I'm wrong, probably the highest part of the entire estate. And if that were just a little bit further south, you probably wouldn't even see them from the road. I just don't understand. I mean, it might spoil the number of larger properties that you could have further down, but it just seems a ridiculous place to put a cluster like that. I just don't get it, and I don't know why anybody hasn't questioned why it's there specifically, and why not 30 feet, 40, 50 feet further south. It's absurd. And on that note, I also don't understand why there have been no illustrations produced as to what it might look like. Have we ever seen any development of this magnitude that doesn't have artists' renditions of what the street will look like, how it will be improved, how the whole estate will be improved, how magnificent the area will be? There's been a lot said about its history and integrity and the way it looks and our view sheds and all the rest of it. Everybody that lives on Newtown Road and travels up and down it is losing the view. The minute that goes there, it's irreversible, and it's just tragic, absolutely tragic. I don't live immediately opposite, but a lot of people here do. What more can I say? My final point is really just my concern about the historical features on Ardrossan. There are some that don't even appear on these plans because they've been allowed to become so dilapidated over the years. There's a beautiful old wheelwright shop, which is now not much more than one stone wall, 20 feet high, and a window, empty window space in it. There are various mill buildings, which are now just a pad because they've been allowed to become decrepit. There is the stone water tower itself on Newtown Road. The roof is caving in, and I'm very surprised that with the amount of snow we had this winter that the roof didn't just disappear. And I haven't seen any mention of that being restored. Unfortunately, it's right where one of the entrances is going to be, and there will be a huge clearing there. I'd be surprised if somebody doesn't want to make a feature of it because it's by the main entrance, but why has there been no mention of it? There are also, there's a considerable evidence of there being Native American artifacts scattered right across Ardrossan. And there has never been, to my knowledge, a proper survey done to investigate what that was all about, or whether it should be protected. Certainly, as a township, I'd want to know more about it. And my final, and on top of the Native American artifacts, of course, the main field here, where are we? Here is adjacent to Washington's camp, which extended way beyond a couple of houses, with several hundred troops camped for a 6-month period between 1777 and 78 over the winter. And there probably are numerous artifacts in the field there. And I'm sure once the diggers go in there, they'll be finding stuff and burying it. And again, I would encourage some sort of survey to be done to find out what's going on, what's still there. And part of me finds it very sad that this is just being plowed and built on when it really is a fabulous historic site. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good evening. Is this on?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. My name is Tim Boylan. I reside at 278 Hothorpe Lane, which is on the corner of Hothorpe and Newtown Road, which is right across from the applicant's proposed development. I'm a member of the Radnor Taxpayers Association, which is a civic group that was organized in order to voice their concerns regarding the proposed Ardrossan Farm development. And I talked earlier on the previous evening that we were here, and the Radnor Taxpayers Association has asked me to speak on their behalf, of which there's about 180 local residents that live in and around the development that's here. So if you could bear with me just for a little extended time to speak on their behalf, and I have some things personally that I'd like to share with you on my behalf as well.
Tim, how much time do you think you need?
15, 20 minutes, max.
Okay, can you keep it to more like 10 or 12? Because
I will do my best.
Thank you.
Okay? I have a PowerPoint
we understand you're speaking
presentation,
for a group, and we understand.
And I'm going to put it up. I don't have to hit every bullet point, but you will
Okay.
have that to refer to for your
Okay.
for the record. And then I have some photos and things of that nature as well that I'd like to share with you for those who aren't familiar with some of the view sheds, et cetera.
And please provide them to us as well.
I will give them to you. Okay? So let me start. While we appreciate the landowner's right to sell their land to a developer for whatever purpose they have, we do take exception to the developer's site plan design when it directly infringes upon the neighborhood, the neighbors' view sheds, their health, their safety, and their welfare. I have the PowerPoint presentation, and there's a man behind the scenes, if I'm not mistaken, who has put that up for me, that I've put together. And I guess I can navigate this by doing that. Last time I was up in front of you, I had these same 9 bullet points that we talked about, and I left you some notations accordingly. There's a few things in here that I would like to specifically get to because the association would now like to make some comments specifically to them. Before they were just issues, we'd like to comment on them as we speak. The main issues that we have with the proposed design deal with, 1, the density and proximity of the village concept in the northeast corner of the property, and 2, the increased road traffic to an already poor situation at many local intersections, and 3 is the road circulation design and infrastructure waivers. So I want to concentrate on those. The other things I think we've talked about already. We had the historic preservation study that we'd like to see made. Stormwater management is an issue. I'll get to that a little bit as my personal issue. The homeowners association's master subdivision plan, that's a legal issue that's between the developer and the township. Something we haven't seen, developers' off-site contribution improvements, given this long stay of a multi-phase 5-10-year build-out, whatever. What are they going to do for us for all the inconveniences that we have to suffer for all that time? And then the other issue is just getting together with the township to be able to give us an idea how to stay in the loop and not get left behind as this process moves forward. So with that, let me just go backwards. Oops. One second, I'll find myself. Okay. I wanted to talk to you about the view sheds, if we could, and the proximity of the village. Can we take the overhead camera off the PowerPoint and put it back onto the overhead? Thank you. As we can see, if we do this village area, the existing buildings and these 3 proposed areas here, Phase 1 and Phase 2, approximately 50% of all the new and existing buildings that are here that are permitted by the conditional use fit within less than 25% of the entire site. And they also sit next to all of the other residents that are adjacent to this property. I have if we could somehow or other maybe zoom in on this and possibly pan it once for this photograph that I've just put up here. Is there any way of doing that? This is a view from my second floor, and I live right here, okay, along Newtown Road, so that you can see our fence, the wall, and then we can see the fields that are out here right now in the wintertime. And as it was stated, this whole area up here is the highest point of our Drazen. If you're going to build 1, 2, 3, 4 homes, 1, 2, 3, 4 homes, and then put behind it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 homes behind it that are all almost 40 feet on the highest point of the road, in which the grade is actually above the wall, we might as well just have a condominium grow up right across the street from us. We lose that view shed, we lose the field, we lose the trees behind the field, we even lose the valley behind that we can see from our windows as we are here today. Another view of that would be with a little more foliage. And as you can see, most of the foliage is on our property with these high trees and canopy, and you can see the grass growing in the field behind. And just to get back to the landscape of trying to buffer this area, putting a 5 or 6 foot tree in front of a 4 foot wall that has an area that has an elevation of about 5 or 6 feet higher than that behind it is not going to do anybody any buffering when you start to put up these houses behind us. So that is a little bit of a visual information for the board to take a look at what we're going to experience as neighbors that live along Newtown Road once these houses, if it's proposed this way, gets approved. I myself understand it's flat, it's level, it's the most economic way to put the smallest lots, largest homes, to make $1 and to do a good real estate, a profitable real estate project. But as it was said, if this village, and I don't know where the township needs another village, to be honest with you. I don't know if that's in any of their master planning as you guys put that forward. If this was all moved from this area down into these areas, which are the investment lots, we would not see them. And perhaps maybe that would have been a better solution to be inclusive with the neighborhood and all of our taxpayers that are in the area. So I'll leave that as a issue with regard to the first issue, and that is the village concept in the Northeast Corridor. Second issue I had is traffic. And I guess I can echo the other comments that were made with regard to the traffic that we have along Newtown Road and Newtown, Darby Paoli, Conestoga, Radnor, Chester Road, Abrams Road, which is so narrow, Church Road, which is so narrow. There's got to be a solution here, because this property, while it's only proposing 70-some units today, has the possibility of putting other units and coming back for conditional use and adding other houses in here, which will affect not only the roadways out here, but possibly any of the roadways that you're now talking about, the waivers and what have you, that are internal to this property. And with that, I'll move to the last piece I want to really talk about, and that would be the infrastructure and the road circulation. I sat down today and said, where is A, B, C, D road, E road? You know, A, B, you know, C, you know, D, E, F, G, H. I mean, they're all there, but they don't work. And from a design standpoint of interconnecting things for life, safety, health, welfare, I just think that the design comes up very poor. The Radnor Taxpayers Association does not want this road, nor does it want this road access on Newtown Road. They feel it just adds to a safety issue. There's got to be a way to bring the two existing roads and utilize them and pick up any of the circular infrastructure inside. It takes time, it takes engineering, it takes money. Historic cartways and pathways, I don't buy that. You know, this is a real estate project that's putting in 60-some new homes, okay? It's the largest real estate project, residential, that this town has seen this century, most probably for the past 25, 30 years. And it's got to be engineered so that these people and the people that follow them and the roads that are dedicated to the township and the maintenance of those actually will work, not 5 years from now, not 10 years from now, but 30, 40, 50 years from now. So if they can find a way to get an access to here, they should be able to find a way to get access from here to here. Gradient is not an issue, okay? There's got to be a way to get a road from here to here. There's got to be a way to get a road from here to here. It's engineering, okay? Bulldozers, cost, engineering could make that happen. These roads can interrelate. These roads can interrelate if the time is taken in order to do that. What we have is a design plan, and everything in yellow there are these investment lots. They're driving the whole design process from not letting you build what's needed to have infrastructure, circulation, and roadways. And I don't know who's made this sacrosanct that you can't design a development, residential, that actually can circulate the people from one phase to another phase to another phase to another phase without using, in blue, state highways as your main circulation artery. So we, as the RTA, do not support these two access points. We do not support the waivers that are being asked for. And we would like you to go back and look at the findings from the, at least our facts of findings and conclusion of law presented to Mr. Bola in the conditional use that we put forward. We objected to it then, we objected to it now. Obviously, it was supposed to be deferred until it comes here for zoning and for planning. So with that, I would like to say two other things. And these two are, I hold these to be pretty personal here. This, if we could zoom in at all. On the water tower. Okay. This is a water tower here. This is where the proposed road is supposed to be cut into for Road A, and it would be to the right of that fire hydrant. So all those trees to the right of that would all come down. to permit that roadway as proposed. That roadway would then look at the Dubers property on Newtown Road, so that you would have 19 homes with their traffic coming out to these people that have lived in this house now for over 47 years, okay? And the traffic, the lights, the noise, the other traffic stopping and going and coming would be situated right in front of their home. I think it's objectionable, and the Dubers asked me to speak to you and let you know that they are totally dissatisfied with this plan as it's presented, as though they picked out them specifically to make them a T-bone intersection for the future development of Ardrossan. The last thing I have to say is on Newtown Road, which are these pictures below, and this photo is showing from the twin stone homes that are on Newtown Road with the two driveway accesses, looking east, down along the wall. And this is coming the other way, looking from that same fire hydrant, right where the water tower is, looking west down Newtown Road, back to the other way. That long stretch of road, which goes for almost 1,000 feet plus, which has close to almost an acre of impervious surface, going from the stone wall to the other side of the street, when it rains, like it has this year, becomes a flooding situation. All of that water runs east to west and west to east and stops right in the middle of Hothorpe Lane, right here. And
Tim,
then,
just a heads up, you've had 17
Yeah.
minutes.
and then runs down Newtown or Hothorpe Lane into the homes and properties that are there. So that's an issue that I think that's both on-site and off-site that needs to be addressed from a stormwater management program that has not been addressed. And if we're going to move forward with this application, I think that this issue and this problem and this flooding needs to be addressed as part of the application. And with that, thank you for your time. I appreciate your
Thank you.
patience. Do you want a copy of this, or do you?
Oh, if you give it to Sue, so she has a copy. While we're waiting for the next person, can I ask the applicant, what are the plans for the water tower?
Yes, and they have been spoken about. We spoke about them at the last time because it was raised again at the last time. And we said that the water tower is on property we don't own. We haven't been able to assess it. Our intent is to keep it if it is structurally sound and to repair it. We would love to see it as a feature of the site and see it kept. But right now, we have nothing to do with the maintenance and preservation of it.
Who owns
You
it?
don't own it?
No, we don't own it. The trusts own it.
Oh.
We are, and if.
Please.
No, wait a second.
You know the owners.
Yes, and working with the owners has been, if you think that this is a tightly knit group of people, the owners and us, you've got an entirely wrong thought.
I'm struggling to understand how you have had access to the entire property to survey, but you can't have, through the trust, but you can't access the water tower through the trust?
We can't go in and maintain the water tower through
Oh,
the trust.
maintain it, sure, that makes sense,
Okay.
but.
We can't, I mean, yes, we have done our environmental reviews of the site. We've given them those studies. They've done nothing with them. I mean, quite frankly, we have no control over the trust. So
Okay.
I just want to make that clear.
Thank you.
People can laugh. but
No, that's why we wanted to know.
Good evening. I'm Colleen Price, and I live at 536 Atterbury Road, right behind this development. And I just had a couple of questions. On the tree plantings, is it true there were 108 plantings that are proposed along the right field?
I do not have any idea.
Could we get a number just?
Lisa Thomas is not here. Her plan is part of what was submitted with the application.
It would be nice just to get a number, because I can just say off the top of my head, I put in 96 arborvitaes in 1 acre on my property, so to put 180, if that's the number, it seems really small, and we might want to look at that number again. And I know they did go to shade tree, but shade tree just looks at what the minimum is. And I think something that's missing here in the whole conversation is this is a conditional use application. This is not by right. You can add conditions. You can say, I want 3 times that buffering. And what we wanted on the rye field, the whole point of this was so that we wouldn't see the houses. And I think it's everywhere, not just the rye field, straight down to Newtown Road. You can add those conditions. So I think we really have to look at this in a context that we're not as stuck as we seem to think we are. And they've come up for, I don't know how many waivers, 15, 18 waivers. Why would you give a waiver if you didn't get something for it? So if there's going to be any exchange for a waiver, find out what you want. And maybe it's one road leading out to Ardrossan, or it's, 10 times the buffering that's been offered here. And the shade tree, they were talking about evergreens. I think they said they weren't native to the area, that they couldn't plant them. I mean, they're in my backyard, so they're definitely native to the area. And all the trees that are along, I'm on that end where they're going to put the I don't know what road that is, B. Half those trees are dead back there, so we don't have any buffer. And most of them look like, they're kind of on their way out. So I think you really need to look at that buffering as well. And what everyone's saying here, this massive village, you could move it back a little bit and kind of help everybody out on Newtown Road. It's your view, too. That was the point of spending $11 million, was to, preserve the views over here as best we could. And the streets, they're too narrow, and I don't understand why you'd have a waiver here. And trying to say this is a rural look, there's nothing rural about 18 homes on 3/4 of an acre that are 6,000 square feet each. That's not rural. And if any of those homes have cars parked on the street, which happens pretty frequently, and I know they address like Parks Run, a lot of those houses, those streets around there are narrow, park your car on Parks Run Lane and try and see 2 cars get by. It can't happen. And to put it on a house, on a street that narrow with a townhome kind of idea, probably with a small driveway, maybe not a big garage, you can have cars on that street. And you can't really condense that street width because it's just not going to be safe.
Colleen, I believe that street is going to be 24 feet with sidewalks and curbs. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Didn't they ask for a variance on that one?
Not on that particular one.
Okay, how about, is it down by my end where I'm sorry, there's so many roads here, it's hard to keep up. Down where the B? Yeah, I mean, I don't see why you would grant it again and not get something for it if you do it. And, you can't have 4 houses on one driveway, and they've got 4 there. If they lop that one house off, they could bring that whole village back, and that whole area would be in compliance. You could have 3 houses on one driveway, and you could get a little bit, of a breather on Newtown Road. Now I lost my page. And I back to Phil's idea on the national standard. I mean, the national standard doesn't apply to some of these houses. You're looking at 10-acre lots. These people have nannies and landscapers and maids, which doesn't happen in the national standard. So when you talk about a head count here, there are a lot more cars that will come in and out of these kind of more prestigious areas than in a traditional, I think, more of a national standard. And then the whole idea, I mean, I know we want the rye field, and I think it's a great idea, but there's no way if you looked at this development that anyone up here would say, wow, that's a beautiful plan, that makes a lot of sense. This is like a mess. And if you don't have interconnecting roads at least, and maybe one road out to Newtown, I don't even know how you can justify this plan. And I think maybe when we look at it, if we could just kind of divorce ourselves from that part that we want the rye field so badly that we're willing to approve anything, let's really look at this as, what's functional and what's the best thing for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Any other public comment? Thank you very much. Okay, board discussion. Who has, first of all, any issues that have not been raised yet that we need to talk about?
I actually have a question because a couple of people have mentioned it. A few times this stormwater management agreement between the developer and the township has been mentioned. And I don't know that I'm real clear on the details of that and how it's supposed to work. I know I have concerns about it. I'd rather hear from staff, thanks. But that's one area of question for me. And I heard about the swales, but how the rest of this is all supposed to work.
Like how the stormwater will be managed, or how the process and who's in charge
Well,
is
I mean,
managed?
so Steve, maybe, are you the one that has information about this? Roger, okay, so
Well,
he's
give him a
back.
chance to get back.
Yeah.
So what are you talking about?
Well, let me
Funding and
ask.
process,
So
that
Roger,
kind
I
of
was
thing?
asking about the stormwater management agreement between the developer and the township was referenced a few times tonight, but I don't know that we have very many details of it. I know that I don't even have a good understanding of it in terms, other than apparently stormwater is going to be managed by 70 individual different owners. How on earth are we going to police that? What happens if one homeowner's system fails and it causes problems on another person's? There's a lot of details about it. I just don't have any understanding about that.
Well, it's outlined in the stormwater management ordinance, and it's done for every grading permit that comes into the township, where any new house is built anywhere in the township. They have to install a stormwater management system, and the agreement goes along with that.
So normally, or what I recall from some of the developments we've done in the last couple of years, it's been the developer's responsibility to build this, to show us the stormwater management systems and to demonstrate how they're going to be adequate for the development that's taking place. And this feels like a departure from that.
That's been, for all the common areas and the roadways, there will be common stormwater facilities that are being included on this plan. When each individual home comes in each lot comes in to be developed, that will be handled on the grading permit, and they will handle the individual stormwater management for each lot. The common area lots are sized for the current runoff of the vacant lots now, and there'll be a reduction in that runoff once the new homes are built.
Again, so why is it that it feels like this is a departure from what has typically happened?
I don't know. It doesn't feel like that
So
to
the
me.
stormwater management
Susan,
system, yeah, go
I
ahead.
think the issue is there theoretically could be 10 or 15 developers.
Well, this is actually basically a subdivision plan, and it's intended that the lots are going to be sold off individually.
Right. Okay, so,
The stormwater management is governed by your NPDES permit issued through the state and through the Delaware County Conservation District. Our stormwater management plan has to involve not only the improvements, but each of the proposed lots. We are going to have to design on each of the lots the stormwater management for that up front, and it will be part of that permit. Now, that doesn't mean that if a homeowner who buys a lot wants to build something different, he can't go back and get that part of the permit modified and approved by the Conservation District to do some different stormwater management in different locations. Mainly what he's disturbing might be of a different location. But our plan will have, our final plan will have all of those items. And not only will you have the stormwater management agreement signed by the developer who is putting in all the roads and improvements and the swales and those things, but you will have each homeowner responsible to sign the same agreement with respect to their lot, which is what happens now on all the other developments of the township, and which we've covered in our agreements with the homeowners. As we sell lots, one of the requirements in that agreement is that they not only execute it, but they build according to our plan unless they get it modified.
so the, one question I have is under our new stormwater management ordinance and/or under our new stormwater advisory committee, does a development like this now get reviewed or talked about by either of those, by that group?
There is no new stormwater ordinance in place. That was not adopted.
Okay, so the new stormwater advisory committee, they don't review a plan like this, right?
That's correct, they do
Okay.
not.
All right. The other question I had, which popped up in my head during the meeting, actually, is does this development come, I don't remember the details of the recreation land fee in lieu of, is this plan subject to that?
Yes, it will be.
There is a reference in the Delaware County Review.
I haven't seen the Delaware County Review comments. Oh, I didn't receive them. Oh, we didn't have power, that's true. Okay,
And
so,
Susan, could we get them?
yeah, thanks. Thank you.
The Delaware County Review, can we get it?
Okay.
I'll send it to you tomorrow, John.
Thank you.
Well, on that topic, while you were still up, you have no objection to either additional property or a fee in lieu under the ordinance, the park and rec thing?
We're going to be responsible for whatever the requirement is for fee in lieu or whatever.
Required.
It's
required,
If it's
right.
required, we'll
There's
be
been no
complying with it.
there's been no waiver requested of that.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a saldo provision and it's required.
I have a question. Are you going to be buffering along Newtown Road and the perimeter of the property?
I'm sorry.
Will you be doing a sort of buffer plating strip along Newtown Road and along the perimeter of the property with regard to the neighbors, the areas that they were speaking about?
Yes, and there are things shown on the landscape plan that is a part of the application, but this area was all walked with the arborist. There's buffering in here where there's a gap. There is additional plantings in here because there are some dying trees in there, so there's reforestation going on in there. In addition to reforestation here, there's undergrowth planting of evergreens, hollies, because that's what will grow in the shade there to provide a second understory of screening. So yes, we are
Okay.
doing that.
And have you met with the neighbors yet to go over this with them?
Yes, we did meet with the neighbors. We went over that with.
Somebody
neighbors.
shaking their head in the back, no.
We contacted and they can tell you they're here. Mr. Harrington's here.
Actually,
and-
I think he just
And
left.
Mr. Boylan's here. We met with them. And then we proposed to them meeting with a broader group. There was a date set, and then it was called off the day before because they said they couldn't meet. We proposed another date. It was called off the day before because they didn't meet. So we tried, set 2 dates, tried to get with them, and got a call back saying, thank you very much for trying, but we can't get people to come out, so there's no sense in having a meeting. But we did meet with our representatives, and we did share those things with them.
All right. If they can get their group together or some representatives of their group, can they contact you or somebody from your office regarding setting up another meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
Can I have a question for staff? Several people mentioned, I think Delaware County also mentioned in their comments, the historic resources that may or may not be on the property. We know there are historic resources, but I don't know how many of them have been identified. Is there a process for that? Has that already been done? How is that normally handled?
There's several steps in that process early on, and Mr. Fiorello can correct me, but part of that was done as part of their planning module process for the sewage facilities where PHMC and PNDI filings had taken place. You can update me on the status of that because we haven't had the final planning module submitted.
We're in the process of going through the planning module process, and our planning modules are down at the City of Philadelphia for review. As part of that, the owners commissioned a historic report to submit along with that, and are in the final process of just finalizing that up right now. So that'll be, that'll address all the historic resources on the property.
Thank you.
Amy, I'm so sorry to go back to this, but the sight lines of that driveway that is the furthest south or west, that's a bit of a ridge, thank you, appreciate that. There's a ridge there. Was that sight line confirmed to be sufficient? I can't picture exactly where it is on that rise.
I can't recall if that was the one that had required trimming.
It was
I'd have
not
to-
just about the, it is, I believe it is, but there's also an issue there of the,
That would be taken into consideration if there is a grade or there's a bump in the road that doesn't allow you to see beyond that. That's something that we would be discussing with PennDOT. If there's,
was that addressed in your
internal?
traffic study?
It's not a grade problem. You can see almost forever both ways. There is a wall that is recessed where the opening is and then has juts out and is closer to the road. And that wall is going to have to be reconstructed on an angle to take it out of the sight line.
The way the road goes down toward Darby Paley is not enough of an issue?
No,
Okay,
there's no
all right.
issue that way, and the other way, it's the wall, and the wall will be reconstructed.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, I have a question. If nobody's speaking up. Did I beat you to it? Have you really considered, or can you consider, the possibility of shifting the village more away from the edge of the property? Or is this written in stone?
This is really what we are applying for.
All right. There is no possible way of flipping a few things around to relocate it?
No, not with the time requirements. No.
All right, thank you.
I did have another stormwater question, Steve and Roger and/or John. The 10 or 11 existing homes on the property, since this is all a new development, will they have to install stormwater management?
Yes.
The existing homes will as well?
Yes, and that's been provided for on the preliminary plan.
Okay.
Doug, did you have a question?
I was going to make a comment that I did miss the last Shade Tree Commission meeting, but I was at the one that we talked about this and in May. Okay. One of the things that I do remember talking about extensively, or pretty substantially, was the sizes, the diameters of the trees that they're planting along the buffer at the end of the rye field. I did mention at the time that I thought it was they were a little small, but they're all tree people and I'm an engineer, so.
And those are what we've been asked to plant. We didn't come up with that sizing requirements. That's what was given us as a request.
Now, there's no reason, not that you want to do that, but there's no reason that we couldn't ask for something different, and you probably would be willing to consider that. Is that correct?
I would go back through your arborist and talk to him about what it is. But I know that he believes that this is the best reforestation plan and that he wants to see it, in essence, an extension of the woods that are on the property.
Now, the other thing is the ones that are out here that are, the drawings that have LP, like 1E and 1A and 1B, those are the actual, further down in the set. Those are the ones that were actually developed by the landscape architect, is that correct?
Yes.
And they show what are theoretically the intended locations, if not the exact locations of the...
That's correct.
All right.
This is a traffic question. Last month, Amy, I had asked about, I have the concern about the width of the roads, the size of the cul-de-sacs with regard to school buses. And last month when I asked this, it was indicated that the school district had not been contacted about this development at all. And I'm wondering, has anybody gone out and
School
contacted?
buses won't go on cul-de-sacs.
Well, they
What we believe they will do is that.
Right. So has someone been in contact with them about the school district, to hear if they have any concerns about the width of that road? One, and then two, I share the concern. I think Mr. Graham brought it up, that we've had very little discussion about this, the potential that there could be more homes in here down the road. I know that's not the intention, but it's the potential. And that because these are public roads, homeowners will have it's not always true that school buses don't go down cul-de-sacs. That's not always true. So, homeowners could end up petitioning for bus stops And so I do think that it's appropriate for the applicant or for traffic, somebody to be in contact with the school district about all the significant waivers on the lengths of the roads and the width of the roads. And then, Steve, the question I have for you with regard to the one-way road is, because it's a public road that you'll now have to plow, do you have any concerns with the one-way road being only 12 feet wide and your equipment having to go in there for trash pickup, for snow removal, for leaf collection, all those things?
Well, currently the site is served by our trash trucks. So the only, really the only road in there now is that current loop road. So they do traverse that now. From a plowing standpoint, I don't have a real concern.
Has anybody shown these plans with the widths of the roads to the fire companies or your fire inspector, whoever looks at that? Because I know in Havertown, they had a problem. No, I'm sorry, it was Radnor, with some of the narrower roads and getting new equipment down it. And I believe the Bryn Mawr trucks had to serve that area. Do you know what fire company would serve this area here?
The fire codes official of Radnor has reviewed this plan. He's voiced his opinion to me that he would like to see the roads wider than what they're being shown, as anyone that would operate any piece of emergency equipment would. But from the turning templates and the radiuses that were provided, the roadways are sufficient for emergency vehicle access.
Okay, now, they were not, I believe, over in the Garrett Hill area. They could not get the newer equipment down it with a car park there. And there were a lot of cars parked there, and I think you may have cars parked on some of these roads also.
That was that was actually part of staff traffic, where there was parking on both sides of the road in Conestoga Village. And they did bring in a truck, I believe, from Bryn Mawr Fire Company.
Right.
And one of the things that might have to be done is there may have to be parking restrictions to these roads, whether it be on one side or whatever that may be, to allow just for what you have just brought up.
What are the widths of those roads? Do you recall?
I'm sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head.
I think they're in the 20 to 24. It's Conestoga Village.
Yeah. The other question I have is, why didn't we get the report from the fire inspector on this, saying that they would prefer that the roads be wider?
I don't believe it was a written report.
Shouldn't it be? We should get some sort of report of this. If he feels the roads are too narrow, then I think we should be told about it.
We discussed this at what's called the SAC meeting, where staff gets together and discusses this, and these comments
that info
get vetted
doesn't
out.
get to us. And I think it's important, if you're talking about road widths, that we know that, and that we don't have to ask the question. So maybe in the future, when you're reviewing a development, that you send us a report of that, because I think that's important information to know if we're going to give waivers on roads.
I will ask them in the future that they issue a direct report to you.
I would appreciate it. Thank you. The other thing is, you had mentioned that the school bus was going to go down probably, I think you said G. Was that correct?
If they go in there, I would expect that they would go in C and then loop G and back out C.
Okay. They're all 20 feet wide with no curbing.
Yep.
And that's a pretty sharp turn to come back around, I think, at the bottom.
No, it's a 90-degree turn.
Actually, you're right, it's 90. Now that I'm looking at it, you're correct.
And I put it back up again, the existing road widths that are in this neighborhood. And, you know, Godfrey, Newtown, and Darby Paoli are basically through collector roads. And they're 20, 20 and a half, and 21. And the residential roads in this area are 20, 19 and a half, 19, 18 and a half, 17 and a half, 16. It's not a safety issue. It's not a passing of cars issue. It's a design issue of whether you're going to have on-street parking in a neighborhood. And this isn't that type of neighborhood.
Can you pull the plan over a little bit so we can see the cul-de-sac?
Sure. Which?
No, the entire plan, I think move it slightly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. The cul-de-sac at the bottom of Road C, is that the one that's just near your left thumb?
Yes.
Okay, that's the one that, if you're saying the school district is possibly going to be coming in there, that cul-de-sac is small. And I think the school district should be consulted about the width of that cul-de-sac.
Yeah, I didn't suggest that the school bus would go any further than that.
Okay, got it.
And then turn back.
And then turn back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you have 6 houses there, probably not a lot of school kids, and it's not a
At the
lot.
end of the day, isn't it the school district that makes a decision as to where the buses go?
Yeah.
And what they will serve and won't serve based on the conditions?
Well, you know what, I don't want to get too in the weeds on that.
Yep.
But that's why I'd asked the question if the applicant had been, this is a significant development for the township.
I know.
And it has the potential to be more significant if the investment lots are potentially developed. So that's why I had asked the question last
Yeah,
month.
I
if they've been
just,
reached out to.
I really think
Because
we're-
it's a public road.
No, I
Steve.
understand, but I just think we're getting focused on what could happen in the future. I mean, it could be Manhattan down here in the future. I just don't think we should, the application that's in front of us now is the one that we should be focusing on, not what could or could not happen in the future, because we know it can happen in the future, but there's nothing we can do about it. That's not the application that's in front of us. I would just like to stay focused on what's on our table.
This application is asking for a tremendous number of waivers.
It's fine, let's just stick with the application and the waivers they're asking for.
Well, I think that the notion of planning is thinking about what are they asking for now, what's being proposed now, what could happen down the road, should that impact some of our decisions with regard to the waivers. Steve, you know that you and I sometimes we approach these things very differently, and that is one of the ways in which you and I approach this differently. That's all.
And to comment on your comment, Sue, if we connected something to Darby Paoli, just one of these, you'd solve problems whether they exist or not.
Well, I don't know about anything coming out. That is the one area in which the applicant and I do agree is that stretch of Darby Paoli Road. Julia and I live down there. Steve and I live down there.
I took a look at it. The only thing you could do would be to recite Darby Paoli Road in almost in big
Which
chunks
runs
of
along
it,
the
which
creek.
is also an historic road. I
Right.
mean, I just don't see how you can do it.
It's bad. We do agree on that access out onto Darby Paoli Road is hazardous at best, exactly.
Okay, I think we've had a good chance to bring up all the items that we're concerned about. I think we've covered all the topics. Maybe what we could do now, if you all think this would work, is kind of go through where we are as a group to see if we have general consensus on what our comment would be about the particular topic before we decide, like, how do we want to vote? Because I imagine, as with other recent recommendations we've sent to the commissioners, it's almost more important not whether we recommend that they approve or disapprove an application, but what the big sticking points are for us. And sometimes it's worded, we don't recommend approval of this because A, B, and C. Sometimes it's worded, we recommend approval of this if all these other conditions are met. So that's sort of your gut feeling, how each of you feel about the project overall. But I think before we make that decision, we should, as a group, look at what those items would be. And some of them I think we kind of have consensus on.
So you have a list of the items?
And someone should be writing them down. Skip.
Could I ask John Rice a question?
Sure.
Before we start that?
Sorry, go ahead.
John, this is a preliminary plan, correct? All right. If we were to give approval to this preliminary plan and we disagreed with the road access on Newtown Road and everything else, and we would want to change that down the road, would we be able to, since it was basically approved on a preliminary?
No.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, and You know, if that's a recommendation, though, with a preliminary plan approval, I mean, ultimately, you're making a recommendation. So the Board of Commissioners will make that final
Decision,
decision
right.
on moving roads or, you know, changing that. But once they approve the preliminary plan, then you're locked in.
Right. If I could make a comment, I'm not prepared to make a decision on this without seeing how these roads come out onto Newtown Road, the width of them, what the sight lines are going to be, because I think we don't have enough information at this point. And I'd like to see what the buffers are going to be also around the property.
If I could address that, PennDOT will have a lot to say on that, since it's each one of these, they'll be required to get a highway occupancy permit that will address every one of these entrances and driveways with widths, sight distances, grades, all of that. So any approval, whether it be preliminary or final, will be contingent upon them getting approval of their highway occupancy permit application. And that even if they showed all of the proper distances on the plan at this point, PennDOT still has the final say on that, and any approval would be conditioned upon PennDOT's permit.
Sight lines and everything.
Yeah, so if PennDOT decides they want one of these entrances 50 feet wide, then their condition of their approval will require them to conform with whatever PennDOT requires as part of that permit.
Okay, thank you.
Julia, one final little comment I meant to say it before, I'm sorry. The one sightline that's going away that we have not talked about at all, which is unfortunate to me, is the kind of the special treat we get when the leaves are gone and you get to see the mansion from Newtown Road. And that's going away. I don't know if everybody realizes that, but for those of us who travel up and down Newtown Road, you know, you come up near the gate and it's the winter time and you get to look off in the distance, particularly at night when it's lit up, and you get to see the mansion, and that's completely going away because of the three houses that are sited there.
Not going to change. You're going to see past that, you're going to see to the west of that house. You're still going to see.
We'll still be able to see that? Okay, all right, good.
Well, that'd be nice. We could
Yeah.
still see that. Okay, when we started our discussion with the traffic, is there any comments about the traffic you'd like to see in our final recommendation?
Well, one of the things that I find most disturbing about what I've heard tonight, and I have to say, generally, I'm okay with the plan. I realize no plan is perfect, all right? Neither, and this one certainly isn't perfect. But what I find to be objectionable is the photograph that was shown of the driveway opening up right across the street from the other people's property on the other side of Newtown Road. I forget the people's name. Duber, thank you. I find that upsetting. I don't really think that's fair that somebody who lives across the street, the house is probably a major investment, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I really think that something should be done not to inconvenience people to that extent, where you're going to have people coming out at nighttime, lights shining, so on. You're going to have just a lot of traffic disgorging right in front of their property. Anytime property gets developed, I guess everybody has to bear the burden of it to some extent. After all, most of the people living in this township probably once upon a time, their house now sits on land that was once an estate or a farm or a gentleman's farm. We all share the burden of the development. We get to live here, but we also get a lot more traffic and other considerations that we have to deal with every single day. But I don't think the burden should fall on a person like that or anybody who has the risk of having their property devalued because suddenly they find it across the street from this entrance.
Are we just going to go down the road, down the line?
No, we're going to start with one topic at a time.
Okay, the traffic, I'm going to echo in on John with that one then. It looks to me, every time I look at the plan, that a couple of minor changes and adjustments could have eliminated at least one of the street cuts, if not two. And the placement of that Road B, you know, the way it curves, right, you know, I can really understand why that particular neighbor feels that way. It's not like it's a straight line that came out. It actually curves right over there. And I look at the top of the plan, and I've looked at it a couple of times, and Amy, I'd welcome your thought on this. It feels to me that that village could have been reconfigured where the entrance could have been directly across from Hothorpe? And is that a better design of a road where we would have had a T intersection, which could have also served potentially some storm, if truly Newtown Road pools that way right at Hothorpe anyway, it could have been a benefit to the neighbors. Could we have had where you come in, it's in the middle of a few of the streets, and you come in and you go to the left or to the right, kind
I'm
of
lost.
a thing. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see it on this plan.
Oh, could you
I
say that
think
again?
it's Hothorpe. Maybe, John, you could help me out here.
Hothorpe, he needs to pull it.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
can you see where Hothorpe comes in?
Yeah. Hothorpe
It
comes
just
in right
feels like that village could have even been redesigned to have created a T not a T, a two-way intersection. I don't know if that's preferable from a traffic standpoint, but since
It was
it's a-
probably too close to the other designed entrance, but certainly it could be reworked, yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I
guessing.
don't know. Anyway, I feel for those neighbors as well. It feels very specific, and it's really, I think, an investment lot that's.
Okay, well,
being
let's focus on how can we
it's
put that in a
because
comment?
trust owns
Assuming that we have a general agreement on that, how do we put that in a comment to
I'd
the
like to-
commissioners? We'd want to see something like, we'd like to see.
Susan, could I just add something to that? That when you have offset intersections like that, if you know you're never going to go to a traffic signal, you're actually better off having them not aligned so that you can eliminate some of the conflicts that can potentially occur at a four-way intersection. So by offsetting them like that, you only have 7 houses on the one side, and I think that it's actually easier for those homeowners to come out when they are separated, and it looks like the spacing between those 2 intersections would be enough, that would be preferable in my opinion.
Do you know any strategies to limit the impact then on the neighbor who's across from the new road coming out?
It looked to me, and I'm not 100% sure, because I'm not very good at shielding and screening, but it looked like the wall was right where that that entrance would be coming in. So
That would be a help, at least.
if it's right at the driveway, then I would anticipate that the lights may come in and be a problem. I don't know where the house sits on the site. I don't know all the particulars about that site, but it looked to me like that access was aligning with the wall, so you wouldn't get that headlight problem going on.
I want to just, because you addressed the question I asked so specifically, and I appreciate it. So what you're saying is that, to some extent, it comes down to whether or not we believe Newtown Road will ever become a signalized road. And if it does not become a signalized road, then the offset streets is a preferable. If we thought it were to become a signalized road, then
Not intersection, not road.
Yeah, no, I got
Okay.
that. Then that intersection would be preferable. Okay, thank you.
And looking at the numbers here, it's unlikely. Whereas Abrams Lane, you would want to align it with Abrams Lane because there is a potential that you could put a signal in there in the future. I'm not saying, right now it doesn't meet the warrants, but it is something that could in the future become necessary. But I don't think it would occur at the other one.
Thank you.
What would you think about a comment for us going forward saying that we would like for the applicant to massage the location of the entrance to minimize the impact on the neighbors across the street?
Well, I think traffic is one issue, HOPs is another issue, but like one of the people who got up and spoke, sometimes it's not always the issue so cut and dry. And I think for me, that is one of the major flaws in my mind is that you are putting such a huge impact on one neighbor by putting that driveway there. It really, that bothers me a lot. And if that could be eliminated by extending that road to the left instead of putting it in through a cul-de-sac and eliminating that entrance, whether it makes sense for traffic or not make sense for traffic, it makes sense for our community. So I'm not afraid to recommend things like that in a planning sense. And if it's not feasible, it doesn't happen. But if we don't recommend it, the conversation doesn't start.
What I want everyone to start thinking about is how we're going to word that. I want you to actually make that recommendation.
A very different thing than moving that a few feet to the left and the right. I'm talking
No,
about
and I think
eliminating it.
Your idea is a good idea, but I need you to
So I don't know
state it in
who
a
else
way
is
that-
on board with eliminating it.
What does everybody think of that concept?
I was just looking at this plan, and I was wondering why the cul-de-sac couldn't be reversed and have that road exit out through the Abrams Lane exit.
Basically, we agree, we support RTA's eliminate, Julia, I think the wording is that conceptually, the wording could be that we support the RTA's recommendation of the elimination of that driveway. Because not
Well,
only
why
is
don't
it
we
the nine.
specifically, if you agree with me on
Well, maybe
flipping the
both.
cul-de-sac,
Maybe both.
Yeah, well,
that would eliminate that.
I understand that. I'm saying they don't support
don't
that
like
driveway. That's my point.
Could we ask
My
the
question on that-
applicant if he could consider that?
No, we're just making recommendations to the
Okay.
commissioners at this point. The
All right.
applicant has stated what they, want to do, and we're just going to respond with our comments
All
to
right.
the commissioners.
The reason why I think, even though I've been complaining about the access and turning on Abrams Lane, I think it needs some sort of control there. And I think it would eliminate one of the exits out onto Newtown Road, and the few more houses isn't going to make that much difference there. That intersection needs to be controlled somehow.
Okay, and I sense we have general agreement on that?
Well, no, I'm-
Okay, have you got that, Skip? Eliminate
flip the
eliminate at least
cul-de-sac.
one of the exits onto Newtown and flip the cul-de-sac.
I think we're referring to Road B. Is that what we're referring
Flip
to
the
here?
my question would be,
A.
I mean, we might,
Yeah, eliminate B, but flip A, make A go down the other way.
But I guess
the
one
cul-de-sac.
suggestion would be to recommend removal of the Road B curb cut onto the roadway and rerouting the traffic. And don't
Right.
say how, however is feasible.
Okay.
Because we really don't, it's not so much that we want to say how to get the cars through, but we just
point.
don't like that
Isn't
location.
that
but
B leads to A.
do we make it impossible for them to build along the right-hand side of the property? Because that ends up being a cul-de-sac that is what? Huge length?
Well,
No,
they're-
not
we're
that we can't
giving-
make
We're given
that.
waivers for that anyway, if
Yeah.
it's going to stay as it stands, right?
Yep.
They could still exit onto the end of the cul-de-sac, or the end of, well, where the cul-de-sac starts, sort of. No, into the cul-de-sac is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Okay, and we stated generally where we want to have remove that access to Newtown Road
So I think it would serve
and have
two
the other,
purposes.
have the traffic for the village come out across from Abrams.
Yeah.
How they do it is, yeah.
Could you word that again for Mrs. Jones?
We'll get back to it. Skip's working on it. Okay, the next item with traffic was, I'm personally fine with the other waivers. What does everybody else feel? For the road widths, I'm supportive of that.
I don't have a problem with the road width. I'm not as eager to grant the right-of-way waiver because I don't feel that we need to, and I don't feel that we're getting anything in exchange for granting that waiver, and it does allow for additional development down the road if a second conditional use were to, if the conditional use were amended down the road, that will allow more development by decreasing the right-of-way.
It's interesting that the village road has a 50-foot right-of-way and everything else is 40, I think.
Well, that has the curbs and the wider road also.
Yeah, and the sidewalk.
I don't have a problem with the right-of-ways. I don't see them as
Do you
being-
follow my logic? If we grant them a waiver from the right-of-way, that allows them additional land down the road if they were to modify the conditional use to develop those other investment lots. So the investment lots will have a higher yield if we grant the waiver versus if we don't. And we're not receiving anything in exchange for those right-of-way waivers. If instead we were getting that land somewhere else as an additional buffer or additional, conserved property that's put under conservation right now, then I would have no problem with that.
No,
And that's
I'm fine
mine.
with that.
Yeah, and that's my issue with all the waivers.
They are giving us twice as much open space as the minimum.
Right, but that's not permanent. That's not conserved. That's just what's on the plan today.
Well, at the last meeting, I was under the impression, and you can comment, Mr. Snyder, that was permanent, that the 89 acres are permanent open space. Is
Yeah,
that?
the 89 acres are not part of investment lots. They're not, and you would have to go back through a whole conditional use process for each of those investment parcels. You're not talking about somebody being able to come in and build by right. So the idea of how you're going to deal with those roads, if you have more traffic, you're going to deal with in that conditional use here.
But before we get off my question, I just want to be absolutely clear for everyone in the audience and on the board that 89 acres are permanently open space.
Yeah.
Conserved, deeded, restricted, whatever. They're not investment lots.
They're not
They can't be built on.
Can't be built on, that's correct.
The minimum acreage you had to do under the initial conditional use application was 40-something.
45, 46.
So they did do something.
And that's one of the conditions that were part of
No,
their
we never made it a
conditional
condition
use.
that they do twice as much ground. They
But I mean,
did twice as
in the
much ground.
conditional use.
Okay, but that really doesn't have that much.
process, was that
Hold it,
mandated?
hold it. That doesn't specifically, that's true, what Skip is saying, but it doesn't talk specifically to the rights-of-way that Regina is talking about. And her reason for that is that there might be less possibility for anything to change in the future and more development if the rights-of-way are larger, correct?
But, I'm sorry,
We really need to have our board discussion. I'm sorry if you don't think we're right on some things, but we need a chance to discuss it as a group and make our recommendations.
fine, but the idea that it gives us more land to build is just so wrong, it needs an answer.
I do have one question related to that, and it's more for John probably than anybody else. If, and I don't expect that they would ever develop, but if they were to start to develop some of those parcels and went back through conditional use, could part of the conditional use be, expanding the right-of-way if necessary down the road, or because it hasn't been done now, it can't be done then?
Well,
That's a good-
the way the conditional use decision, that condition, which was attached, was to preclude someone coming in and saying, we're amending the existing conditional use. So they would have to come in with an entirely new conditional use plan under whatever the regulations are in effect, and everything is wide open at that point. Right away, road improvements that they're asking to be waived now, that was the disincentive for somebody to say, I'm just amending what's already been approved. It's got to be a brand-new conditional use application, meeting all the requirements of density modification.
All right, but if we required a certain right-of-way,
Right.
the portion beyond that right-of-way is now private property, right?
Right, you wouldn't be able to, you're not going to be able to, because you're going to have a public road there. Those lots are going to be existing. You're not going to be able to acquire more right-of-way from the people that are building the homes and are living in there, depending on when this would happen.
But that was precisely my point. If we don't do it now,
Right,
we can't do it then.
right.
Well, let me ask the staff, after hearing our discussion, Regina's opinion about the rights-of-way, could you let us know again, where are we with that? How do you feel about the right-of-way waivers? I'm asking the staff in general.
My opinion is, from a traffic perspective, you have sufficient room to put in sidewalks if in the future you decide that you need them, and that would be my predominant concern.
And do you not have that with a 40-foot right-of-way?
You do have it with the 40-foot, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
What they are
Well, let me be
proposing
clear.
is sufficient to put in sidewalks at some time in the future if they desire to do.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'm also fine with the 40-foot right-of-way width. As Steve had mentioned earlier, all of the utilities will be located within the cartway or right on within certainly the 40-foot right-of-way as it is now.
Okay.
In my opinion, the only reason I guess, Regina, the only reason I'm thinking you want to do this now is because you don't trust the board in the future, right? Because, if they do this in the future, they do come back through conditional use again and do want to develop those lots, there's going to be 9 people sitting here in 5 or 10 years or 20 years, and they're going to have to go through this whole review process all again. So, and they're going to have to limit, and first off, I would like to limit our comments to the things we really want as opposed to loading down the developer with a bunch of other stuff, which kind of more makes them throw up their hands. I'm also more optimistic that the boards in the future, I think, are going to be more restrictive than they are today because that's just generally how it's going. And I don't think it's ever loosened up. The more development you have, the more strict it gets. So I'm kind of optimistic that if they do come back, which I kind of doubt they will, but if they did, that it would be harder for them and the board would be more scrutinous even than we are today.
The waivers The only thing about the waivers that really bothers me is that I feel that the developer has given very little in exchange for them. And Skip, to your comment that they have doubled the open space, I appreciate that, but the I don't see that they gave it to us in places that benefited the community as a whole. Julia and I still have, I think all of us do still have concerns about the view shed, and that was a place where they could have given us some of that open space to have ensured that we would have no issue with the view shed. They could have given it in pushing the village down off of Newtown Road.
Well, don't mistake that we didn't get to that yet.
Okay, I'm just saying that they gave us more open space, but only in places that benefit the 70 people, the 70 families, and really the 55 families, because the village doesn't have the view shed in any way, shape, or form that the rest of the other 55 do. So that's the only thing about the waivers that bothers me, if staff is okay with the waivers. Except for the width of the road, which I do have the concern about, because they are public roads.
One more thing, I just keep on, I hear your point, Susan. One thing that I that I have in the back of my mind always is that we could be out here looking at, 150 homes or something to that effect, right? I mean, I'm not incorrect, right?
That's correct.
So that's always looming in the back of my mind. They haven't threatened it or anything like that, but I think they've given a major concession for a lot of reasons. I think some of them are personal. Some of them have to do with hereditary and, familiar reasons. They've figured out a way to make the economics work. I don't know if this is more economical for them or more profitable than to put 150 houses on it or not, and it doesn't really matter. But at the end of the day, I'm still always mindful of the fact that, we could be back to 150 houses, and you think you got traffic problems now and complaints now. It's a lot less. So, I don't think that we got to give away the shop, but I think maybe a little bit of, I don't want to kill them either.
Okay. Let's just do a general, see where we stand. No, just on that one. I just want to know where people generally stand
on this issue. It's going to be
waivers.
tough for us to figure out how to push this forward, because some of us are okay with the roadway width, some are not. Some
Right,
of
that's
us
why I
are
wanna
okay with the
ask.
right-of-way, some of us are not. Do we want to break those issues into separate issues? The waivers.
Well, let's try it as a whole and
is there
see
any
where
reason
we
to
are.
consolidate those waivers, or should we identify each waiver one by one? And
Let's try it all together and see where we are. And if we can't come to a decision, then we'll break them down. Okay?
Who's in favor of granting the waivers or not granting, whatever? Let's just,
thing is, I'm
Who's
kind of
comfortable with-
partial on that, so I'm not yes and no.
Okay.
Let's ask it this way.
We'll do it
And I think
separately.
Steve just asked it. Who would grant every single waiver? Raise your hand.
I would. So that's
Okay.
only 3 of us.
So we don't agree on that.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
So that's all we need to know. Now let's go through them one by one.
Can we maybe go by right-of-way? Are we all in favor of the right-of-ways they have noted here?
Yeah, we'll do them one at a time. Okay, first
But
one, just a show of
maybe we
hands.
don't
This
have
is
to
not
do
a
it one
final
at a time.
vote. We're just going to see where we are. Who would recommend approval of the right-of-ways, the smaller right-of-ways? That's fine. 4 to 4. Okay, that's tied.
No, I guess I should be clear. It's that I would like to see them do something for the neighbors around this who are going to be in the whole.
And quite honestly, that has to happen at the commissioner level.
I know that.
We are going to say what we think. Hopefully, the commissioners will do some dig and take, but we can't do all that tonight.
No, we don't have to say what we want in exchange, but we could say we don't favor this waiver because it doesn't benefit the plan and it doesn't bring anything new to us in return. That's, if they could say to me right here, the reason we need this waiver is X, and it's really important, and that's, I'm not hearing that on the right of way.
I think
we have to vote, though. We have to put a yes or no down.
Okay, let's start with an easier one. Who could support the waivers for the cul-de-sac length, provided that the emergency accesses become available?
Oh, with that.
Wait, would you restate that?
We support the applicant receiving a waiver for cul-de-sac length because of now that we've seen the emergency access routes.
Except that I thought we're going to flip the cul-de-sac. And it'll connect it.
many cul-de-sac lengths that are too long?
Well, no, there's two emergency exits. I don't, oh, did.
We're going to
Yes.
say that.
And that's the primary emergency access issue.
Madam
In other words,
Chairman.
you don't need an emergency access as much. I guess maybe here.
Excuse me,
theoretically.
hang on. Steve?
Are we going to go down, I mean, just for Sue's sake, are we going to note the section, 255-27D1 cul-de-sac length? And
That's
then the
hard
vote?
right now for me because it's not written on this piece of paper.
If you go to Roger's June 11th review letter, which was from the last meeting, so my thought would be, and just a request, we just go right down, he lists each of the waivers, and maybe if the commission, it would be acceptable to just go through each waiver and take the vote, and then Sue can just use this letter as her template. That goes, that goes in the minutes and
If I
goes to
had
the
it,
board.
it'd be great. Well,
Okay, hang on.
I don't have it.
I think I have it. You're going to have to do it with me, Steve. What's the first one?
That would be, it's page 1 of the June 11th Gannett Fleming review letter.
Okay.
And it's 255-27C1, 60-foot right-of-way, 24-foot cartway, and sidewalks along minor collector streets. There's parentheticals, Newtown Road. Thank you, Mr.
Jim, could you zoom in on the letter?
So, Julie, you want to just do more?
Yeah.
And then just
A little more, Jim?
3 to 4 I don't know, just.
The other way.
One more zoom, Jim?
Why does it say Newtown Road though?
Because we would need sidewalks on Newtown Road.
That's something we haven't even discussed. Now, if we're going to say we don't need sidewalks here, are we going to, in exchange, request, a fee in lieu or something, sidewalks put somewhere else, something put towards the construction of paths in the Ryefield area? I mean, are we asking for anything in return for not having sidewalks put in?
I thought someone 2 minutes ago said we're not supposed to negotiate. That's really the commissioners.
Well,
Actually, we decided,
but I guess we haven't even had a discussion on that being a possibility.
We discussed the sidewalks on Newtown Road at the last meeting, and the right-of-way goes up to the wall, so there's no room for Newtown Road to have sidewalks. Am I correct in that?
I don't think
That's what I
that was the
thought.
complete discussion.
I don't think that was the whole thing either. And
Because the applicant doesn't want to put them inside the wall. He just doesn't want to put a walkway or anything inside the wall the way that the people up at Atterbury did.
I have a question then, for Julia and John. So is this something that we should be doing
Don't do anything yet.
at this juncture? Should we be saying, yes, we'll approve this, but since you're not putting sidewalks here, we want you to take the money allocated to that and allocate it to sidewalks elsewhere?
I mean, you can certainly make that recommendation. I wouldn't spend a lot of time doing it, though, because that's really something that's up to the commissioners on any kind of a waiver, whether it's sidewalks, curbs, something else that, and I don't think this planning commission's ever done that in the past, but if you think as a group it's a good policy to get something when you're waiving saldo provisions, then you can make that as a general decision. But I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it because you can really get into the weeds on what's that worth.
Well, the other thing that's happened in the past is we've asked applicants, well, if we give you this waiver, would you be willing to do, and they've agreed to it. And that's been very successful when we've had conversations about, yes, we understand your viewpoint. Can you understand ours? The goal of that requirement is for pedestrian mobility? Is there any other way you can provide pedestrian mobility that doesn't infringe upon what you're trying to do here with this development? So I don't feel like we're having a normal process here because there is no conversation. There's no, we've just decided that we have to live with what's there. I don't know why we've done that.
Then that's fine, then just make a recommendation. I mean, seriously,
We could coach it very generally. I think we all basically agree that if the township did give relief to all these waivers,
Right.
they should receive something in exchange, and, more so than what's already there. I think what we'd want to do then is put in our comments to the commissioners, what are the things that we really want? I, for instance, want those houses off of the top of the rye field
Yeah,
on the
ditto.
end, but that may not be everybody's point of view. I want better buffers along Newtown, Abrams, and the rye field. And we haven't talked about the buffers yet, but that's something I think that we're all going to agree on. I don't think we put in the comments, we want this for that. I think we put in our comments, this is what's important to us, after having looked at this whole process for the many, many months that we've looked at it.
Julia, that's the approach I was thinking that maybe we should take. Because at the end of the day, we are only going to make recommendations to the Board of Commissioners.
Yeah.
And I believe strongly that, this is a project that they've worked hard on, that the applicants worked hard on, that the township is committed to having happen. And I think that even the neighbors understand, at the end of the day, this is a private property person, they have the right to develop their property. And as Steve said, you're right, it would not be preferable to me or anybody else to see 150 homes in this property from a traffic standpoint alone, even if they clustered them in the middle. So perhaps the approach to take is, and I can even say this for myself, I could see myself supporting the waivers, although, but I would like to see the developer do the things that are most, make the changes that are most impactful to the neighbors who live right there. Because my overriding feeling about this project is that the design of it, the clustering, the investment lots, and the open space have all been to the benefit of the 70 homeowners who are inside the wall. That's really how this thing, the picture that Mr. Boylan put up makes it crystal clear that the whole design is benefiting 70 homeowners. And there's 8,000 homeowners in Radnor Township who are all paying $11 million for the view shed. We're all pitching in on that, all 8,000 of us. And there's about, I don't know, I guess the 185 who are part of the Radnor Township Radnor Taxpayer Association who feel the most impacted, and then the one particular homeowner, right on Newtown Road, that I could see myself supporting the waivers if we can remove the driveway entrance that services the village and find a way to put that traffic onto the Abrahams Lane intersection, which I think I think our staff traffic would say that she wrote in her notes, fewer street cuts is preferable. So that's in support of our staff traffic engineer who wrote it.
Well, let's make that motion.
So that's where I think we need to try to have a motion, because all the commissioners are going to get from us is a motion, and that's what they're going to move from.
And I'd
what
like to
else-
cover all the
there-
major topics we're going to put in that motion.
So I
That's
guess
what
my
we're trying
point
to
is,
do.
but my point is that rather than go piece by piece on the waivers, is there anybody here who wouldn't support the waivers if we could get 2 or 3 things in return?
Yes, I would
Big
support
things,
it.
yeah, I would-
Then
I-
that's how this focus should be, not do we approve of the waivers,
Okay.
it's what do we want in return?
Yes, we all agree. Can we
Great.
go on?
Yep.
Okay. Other topics we did not address yet as a group that I would like to see, or some other people have mentioned they'd like to see in our motion. Again, I've mentioned that I'd like to see the 4 homes on the lower part of the rye field relocated to somewhere else on the property. I think it's inappropriate to have them there, given that the top number 1 conditional use requirement that by the conditional use officer was that those use sheds be protected, and the buffer's not going to do it. Now, is it just me?
No, but No, but I wonder if just moving the road in more, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take to do
Yeah,
it.
I guess
We're not going to be
I'm-
moving the roads tonight. So given this plan, that's my suggestion.
I think I want to put more weight on that driveway entrance,
We can
that
put equal
entrance.
weight on them.
Because I'm seeing a way, maybe it's not feasible, but in my mind, I'm seeing a way to do that without really reconfiguring the site. Now, what you're talking about is kind of like reconfiguring the site, and that's going a
moving
little
four
bit beyond
houses.
where, I am.
Well, I think they're both important. Okay. All right, the
I
other
agree.
items are, we did not yet talk about the landscape buffer. From what I heard, and tell me if I'm wrong, what we'd like to see there is, we'd like to see the buffer amended so that it provides a strip of land, the Bryfield buffer I'm talking about first. It provides that strip of land that is set to be reforested over time and also includes an immediate screening buffer. Could you please not do that? It's not polite, and we're trying to get through this meeting. Thank you. And then the other buffers, I'd like to see the buffer along Abrams improved, given the fact that a lot of those trees apparently are not healthy.
Oh, I think it's private Newtown Road that they're talking about. It's not Abraham's, it's private Newtown Road.
This little road here.
Yeah, that's.
What's that called?
Private Newtown Road.
Private, thank you. I'd like to see that buffer redesigned so that it accommodates the fact that those trees are not healthy to the satisfaction of the township and the neighbors. And then, of course, the buffer along Newtown Road in the area of the village, I think should be, beefed up as much as possible.
I think the applicant did comment that was pretty beefy, but I think a secondary comment would be if there's any way to move the village in or 50 feet, that would be a great start.
I'm pessimistic that that will happen, but
Yeah.
that's no reason not to mention it.
Right. But I mean, I think that would be a good thing.
Okay, put that down.
Well, the other thing, too, is I know that there's been some failed attempts to coordinate with the neighbors. Is that something the township could facilitate? Can they set up a meeting and at least have something on, like, neutral territory where we revisit that, to facilitate that? Oh, I know. I'm saying it hasn't failed on your side, it's failed on the other side. So that we can, just see for sure that there's no way to, I just feel like that's still out there as an opportunity if we can help make that happen. Because really, it's the people who live right adjacent who it impacts the most. And if they can provide their preferences in a way that the township and the developer and everybody's all on the same page.
I think it's the neighbor's responsibility to attend a meeting. They've tried twice, and Mr. Harrington, yes.
I'm sorry, you're going to have to come to a microphone.
Is that even possible for the township to set that up, or is that just way out of bounds? I don't know.
My opinion is they're all adults. They've been trying to meet. If they want to meet, they will meet. Township staff has a lot of other things to do.
I called for a meeting because the application was imminent, and I wanted to see what was going on. We didn't know about the traffic report. Everything was happening. The next thing you know, summer's starting, so I asked for a meeting, and the applicant was kind enough and gracious enough to meet with Mr. Harrington and I, okay? We shared the traffic study. We shared some of our comments and some of the things that we had in terms of the disappointments we have with the design, et cetera. And then we wanted to have a more inclusive meeting with more people, and it just did not work with timing and vacations and things of that nature. So it was not a matter of a gracious offer by the applicant and the homeowners wouldn't come to the table. The homeowners came to the table. The applicant was kind enough to meet with us. We wanted to have another meeting. It ended up 2 days before your meeting, your first meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
I'm sorry. Just so you understand, I have to say one thing. He's wrong. I called Mr. Edelson, their attorney. I asked for a meeting. Mr. Edelson referred the call to them. That's when they requested. I'm the guy that made the move. I'm the guy that said, we'd like to meet with the neighbors, would you meet with us? Just
Thank
so
you.
that it's clear.
Well, I think the question remains.
Are there any-
I think.
Sorry.
The question remains if neighbors want to work with you regarding the buffering and so forth, that option is there. It's the responsibility of the two parties involved to get together. I don't think we or the township staff have to do the matchmaking on that. I
No.
think they can contact each other and work it out.
And the neighbors, if they have trouble down the road getting together, they can let us know. But
Yeah.
so far, that's not been the problem, so, okay. I think we covered everything briefly. What I wanted to say about the rye field specifically in terms of the buffer was I'd like to see that, yeah, I said that. I wanted to see that as a reforestation buffer with, trees of various sizes, and in addition to that, some immediate screening. Anything.
You mean-
Whatever it takes to screen those.
Well, it's either apples or oranges or both. So I think you're saying
Right,
both.
Both.
And what the arborist said
They've got
was
100
apples.
feet, right?
Yeah, the arborist said apples, and you want
Both,
oranges too.
yes.
Okay.
I guess
We'll put that in a
what
different
I'm
form.
hearing is that both the residents and yourself want to see that augmented. You're not saying that you
I'm all for the
necessarily have
reforestation,
to
yeah.
change the species or whatever, but maybe
No, I
the
think-
size.
Maybe you need more evergreens.
The quantity.
A mixed-
No, you are saying you want to change the plant species.
Yes, I
then.
want mixed deciduous and coniferous.
Okay, so that's a
yeah.
difference. Okay.
I think Julia's talking about the Newtown Road buffer as somehow being translatable to the rye field as a buffer, partially. Partially. In other words, a mix of things. I think the arborist wants us just to have a deciduous forest.
And that's not what we want.
And I don't think the neighbors want that either.
Yeah, I guess I would like to see
But-
them weigh in on anything before it actually, I don't want to override the arborist, but if we can somehow revisit and,
I think we are suggesting that the arborist
Revisit that.
revisit it. The other thing is if they actually could move the last four houses that Julia brought up a few times, the buffer becomes less significant as an issue, that particular buffer. You want to be able to see deeper into the property from the rye field or when you're walking in the rye field. And if those four houses aren't there, you're going to see deeper into the
There,
property.
you'd see forest behind
Yeah.
it, yeah. So you don't need a buffer there.
Well, the other thing is, one of the waivers they're asking for is all the shade tree waiver along all the roads.
You mean the every 30 feet
Street
thing?
trees, you mean?
Yeah, the street trees.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
No, I know that, but,
Oh.
I mean, so that gives them the wiggle room to be doing, the buffering in ways that may be more expensive and.
Well, it's a conditional use requirement. They have
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
yeah. We don't need wiggle room.
Let's take a minute for me. I'm just going to summarize where I think we are, and then we can then we can come back to it. Okay. No. Okay. Issues that are important to us, not necessarily in the greatest importance first, but flip the cul-de-sac on the village so that it exits onto Abrams Lane. We're going to consider by vote, but I think we have already reached the conclusion that we're not going to necessarily play with the right-of-ways, but we may have a vote on that, just to be sure. Oh, we did have a loose straw vote.
If we get the other things we wanted with our general.
One of the things that we will have to vote on, but we haven't, Julia brought it up, but we need to vote on it, is moving the four houses off the end of the rye field cul-de-sac. I think we probably have a consensus on the buffer on the rye field, but basically we want more of a Newtown Road buffer. We're recommending that the arborist revisit it. I brought up the idea of pushing the village into the lot in some way, somehow. And we haven't voted on it, but I think we need to vote on that. And Julia brought up that the Newtown private road buffer had to be substantially groomed, upgraded, and replanted.
And they
we can
and-
still add to this, but this is where we are right now.
and that has an overall theme of let's reduce the impact to the immediate neighbors.
Yeah, could we add, I don't know how other people feel about this, but could we add that we'd like to see the stone water tower preserved?
They've already expressed the desire to do that, so.
But we'd like to be assured that they will.
They can't, that's
They-
the other part.
They can get rights to do it. Well, that's not what we heard earlier.
The stone building is legal. We don't know that. We assume it is, but we don't know that.
Can we talk about the one waiver that we have not discussed at all, which is the streetlights? And I really get why they don't want to do streetlights. And, you know, I do understand that. Where am I heading with this?
Yeah.
How do you feel about the streetlights?
Well, you know, there's a point at which life safety and welfare is an issue. I mean, imagine what it could look like if there's trick-or-treaters in there, or you know, maybe nobody thinks this neighborhood's going to be like that, but I think the village is maybe going to be more like that. I guess maybe what I'm wondering is, should we at least ask them to put in the infrastructure for streetlights? So if down the road, you know, the community changes its mind about streetlights in here, it's not ripping up streets and ripping up property owners' land to put in streetlights. I'm just wondering if there's a way to put it in.
Isn't that the homeowners' problem, association's problem down the road?
I can't imagine they'd ever want streetlights in here.
Okay. You know,
There's no street lights on the other roads right around
yeah,
there.
none around us. See, our road has streetlights. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Anything else?
One of the things, the very first thing that he talked about was flipping the,
Cul-de-sac.
but he didn't mention anything about eliminating, if you can.
Oh, could you specifically
curb
put
cut
the
out
words
onto
in
the
there,
street?
eliminate one curb cut onto New
Yeah,
Town Square?
the way we wanted to say is not just eliminating a curb cut, it's the Road B.
Road B, curb cut. Yeah, that's fine. I think we got it all. Let me check Roger's list again, make sure we didn't forget anything.
What about the Native American artifacts?
That's going to get handled with the, in the process of, is the stormwater process? Who was talking about that? When is the historic survey done? We talked about that earlier in tonight's meeting. It's done at the level when they do the planning module.
for land development.
Okay. No, I think we covered everything. Okay, I guess our first decision would be, as Skip very valiantly writes his motion, do we want to start out saying we recommend approval, and these are our concerns and conditions, or do we want to start out saying we don't recommend approval, and these are our concerns and conditions? Should we vote on that? Should we discuss it?
I think we should discuss it, because I think there's pros and cons to both. I don't want to appear that we're trying to stop the project. I don't want to appear that we're trying to be spiteful of the project. But I do feel like there's still some opportunities to make the project more palatable to the adjacent community. And I think that's my goal here, is to, without restricting the developer in a way that's going to impact what's been already approved in the conditional use, to modify slightly things here and there, to make it better for the adjacent community.
How would you prefer the motion to go?
That's my question. How do you think we can go about doing that?
I mean, don't we just
Do you
vote
think-
for approval or not approval?
Well, do you think if we were to say we recommend against granting the waivers because they haven't gone far enough to accommodate
Oh, I
the
understand the
adjacent
We're not
community,
just voting
is
about
that
the waivers. We're voting on the preliminary plan. We're not
we
just
also
voting
have
on
to
the waivers.
we also have to do that on the waivers, don't we, as well?
But I thought we decided to approve the waivers.
The
if-
conditions, with the
With the
conditions that you've
conditions.
outlined.
That
I
the
mean,
other-
And
that the other items
conditions are flipping the cul-de-sac, beefing up the buffers, considering moving the 4 houses.
Considering is different from a condition.
Okay.
John, can I ask John Rice a quick question? John, in the Delaware County Planning Commission's comments, they made the comment that the conditional use approval had a series of stipulations. One of the stipulations that was mentioned is subjective consideration of development design beyond the 65 proposed dwellings. Can you walk me through what that meant in the, what I'm thinking that means is that to the extent that they are putting in more than 64 homes, this thing was a little bit more subject to design development. It's on page 4 of their Delaware County Planning Commission.
I haven't seen that, but that comment.
Susan, I believe that comment is a suggestion from them. It's not summarizing the conditional use. It's a suggestion.
Oh, no, it mentions it, I mean, it mentioned it as a stipulation of the conditional use.
Right, but that's not what the conditional use says. So
Okay. So the way they wrote that is not quite accurate? Well, that's why I was asking you to clarify it for me.
It does say these stipulations. And you think that they just miscategorized them as stipulations?
Well, it says conditional use approval, sheet 7 indicates the applicant received conditional use approval. The conditional use provides.
Microphone, sorry.
The conditional use, it says, the first paragraph, the conditional use provides up to 87 single-family units with a series of 9 stipulations. Now, these stipulations include, and then they list the 9, but they're not listing them verbatim. They're interpreting them, I guess.
And if you look at number 4 on the conditional use decision, it says, in the event that the applicant, blah, 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 proposes to build any additional dwellings beyond the proposed maximum limit of 64 or 87.
Right.
And they're not beyond that number.
Correct. Yeah, I'm not sure, a subjectivity for compliance with, I'm not sure what that means in the Delaware County's review. Maybe they're
misinterpreting.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't-
looking at the
what
conditional
that
use
means.
decision in item 9. It looks like they paraphrased what was written in there and came up with their own interpretation, which I don't think is entirely accurate.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted clarification on that, thank you.
Here's 9.
Yeah, the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plan shall be
Subject to
subject to modification by the board during the subdivision and land development review process. I
Which
mean,
does not mean.
yeah,
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but anyway, number 9 was just that there is a chance to change what was presented during the conditional use as to the plan during this process. And they've made changes to the plan themselves, because the conditional use plan doesn't lock in everything.
Julia, I just want to clarify something you said before we
Please.
vote, as we're getting closer to a vote. It seemed to me that you said that we had or someone said, we had potentially 2 votes. That vote is, do we approve the plan or not? But as to the waivers, which we should vote on separately, that we would only approve the waivers if X, Y, Z, and A, B, and C are part of the conditions.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Does that make sense to you, John?
Can we do that? Can we approve the
Is
plan
that
without
an appropriate,
approving the
procedure?
waivers?
Well, you want to approve the plan and the waivers subject to your conditions.
Oh, well, then it's one motion.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all one motion.
Okay, well.
Yeah.
I think I may have said that wrong. No.
I mean, if
Thank
you
you.
want to carve out a waiver and deny it, then you can do that, but do that separately. But if you're okay generally with the waivers and the plan, but you have these conditions, then it ought to all be in one motion.
Okay. Did we answer your question, Regina, about whether it's better to vote?
Well, I guess we have to just decide one way or another, but,
Because you could just start from the point of view of, yes, there are a lot of issues here, but generally, how do you feel about the plan and the process and how we're going? Do you feel like this is a total disaster because there's all these things that are wrong with it? Or do you feel there's some really important things here, so I can't recommend approval, but because of the real sticking issues? Or do you feel like, generally, I think this is good. I don't think they're quite there yet, but I could say, yes, we should have approval, but change a bunch of things. It's like, where are you thinking? I think that's how I think about it.
I
when
guess I'm
deciding.
somewhere in the middle, and that's where I'm having a hard time with it. But I think the main point that I would like to come across with is that we've been kind of given the plan already. This isn't the first time we're seeing it. It's been through conditional use, so it's kind of already been set. So now we're really kind of discussing the waivers, really. I mean, all the letter of the law, that type of thing, is being taken care of. So it's the waivers that really are what are a question mark at this time. So
I just want to say, we have seen this many times, but this is the first time we are recommending or not recommending approval of a preliminary plan.
But what I'm saying is it's almost like the preliminary plan has been set for us through the conditional use process. It's different than a new application. And what's happening here is we're determining whether or not these waivers make sense on this preliminary plan. And so I guess my feeling is that the waivers that they're requesting are not burdensome. However, in exchange for the waivers, I'd like to see improvements for the adjacent community. And then you had your list pretty much of, and that's pretty much what all of those things lean towards.
Yes.
And those are recommendations that we can make, and some may be attainable and some may not. So I don't want it to be, grant the waivers if they do all these things. I think it's more,
we can't be that specific.
We would recommend allowing for these waivers if movement was made towards these goals.
We can just state what we want. The commissioners, I mean, we don't make the final decision, so we don't have to back off of our position.
I'm just saying about our wording. How we're presenting this. I would prefer to present that we would recommend these as a goal to work towards these improvements for the community.
I think we narrowed down, we didn't nitpick on this. We didn't say, oh, let's have 50 houses instead. I mean, let's something outrageous. We picked 7 things that are fairly important, and we're strongly suggesting to the point of making them conditions as opposed to suggestions. That doesn't mean that the commissioners will agree with us. It just means that these are that important that we decided to call them conditions. Sometimes in some of our deliberations, we say, we think it would be great if staff and the applicant would get together on the design of this or the placement of that. But we're not doing that, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see this, I guess I never did look at this.
Okay, people, we only have a few more minutes, and then I'm going to get very tired.
The zoning table, all of their waivers benefit them financially tremendously. And while we might see the waivers as being a benefit environmentally, which they are, they visually only benefit the 70 people in here. So they really, I don't know the wording other than John Rice is here, and John Rice will be at the Board of Commissioners meeting. That if we, and I feel, I say the same thing as Regina, I don't want to come across as being stingy or not supporting this, but I really, really believe that they have the wiggle room and the financial wiggle room, given the benefit of not having all these wider roads and not lights.
Okay, that's why we're going to make a motion about that.
So let's do a motion that is supportive of it, but conditioned upon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it.
Yeah,
We've all
yeah.
been saying that.
I can give you a proposed motion if you would like.
Well, we're willing to listen, but,
Well, Steve's got one, Skip's got one ready.
Skip, you go.
okay.
Because you've been writing down the same thing I think I've been writing down.
Well, and we'll briefly make sure we are all on the same page.
You said there were 7. I only
like-
had 6 on my list.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we give approval to this preliminary plan, but expressly conditioned on the following conditions to be met by the applicant. That they flip the Road A on the cul-de-sac village to exit at Abraham's Lane and eliminate entirely the Road B access to Newtown Road. That they relocate so that they are not visible from Darby Road and Newtown Road across the rye field, the last 4 houses at the end. And that there is some wiggle room for them to figure out where they want to do that, but, okay. That the buffer at the rye field be reviewed by the arborist and staff and contain conifers, understory, and deciduous trees, and provide a real buffer. that and this is, we didn't even vote on this. Okay, so there's a pause in it, okay?
Keep going.
Do we want to include that the village location be moved 50 feet in from Newtown Road?
I don't feel strongly about it.
I would not agree with that.
Well, let's take a vote. We don't have to discuss it. We've all discussed it. Who would like to see that as one of the conditions, moving the village away from Newtown Road?
Well, not, okay, well, away could be 1 foot.
Okay, that's 5 people, so go ahead, put it in.
Okay. All right, without using 50, that the applicant relocate the village further away from Newtown Road. That the applicant also substantially improve the buffer at the private Newtown Road.
This here.
Well, no, I think they already did that. I don't think we disagreed with that. In fact, we categorized that buffer as the buffer we want on the rye field.
Okay, keep going.
I think that's where it stops, because the next thing is streetlights.
Okay. Actually,
I
I wanted
had
to see a
preserved-
better buffer on Newtown Road, too.
Oh, no, but before but Kathy says I missed something. So what?
Well, you mentioned the private Newtown Road. I'd like to see a better buffer along Newtown Road, because it will also shield, I don't think they're going to be able to move the village far enough away to make a great difference to the people over there. So if they can move it some feet and then beef up
increase
that
the
buffer
buffer.
there, it will
That's
give
We
them
could-
some protection.
We could request that the buffer be increased by the amount of feet that they move the village.
Yeah, and I'd like to see the buffers, quite truthfully, in the next plan.
Well,
The-
wait a minute. You might
My
not see
comment,
this.
my comment on that is that part of the reason we are suggesting that they move the buildings back from Newtown Road is so that it maintains part of the view shed, and by putting buffers there, doesn't that undo it?
Well, they're not going to move it so far that you won't see the houses. Yeah, I mean, you need to be realistic about it. If you can protect the back of the houses from view from the people across the street, that's a help. And so I think that you ought to consider beefing up the buffer along the village area there.
Is everybody okay with beefing up that buffer if the village was to be moved? Okay.
Or even if the village is
Or
not
even
to
if
be
it's not
moved.
moved? Okay.
But either way.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to amend the motion in that one spot to say that we, as a condition, either want the buffer increased as it applies to Newtown Road, regular public Newtown Road, or the village moved further interior into the parcel.
I thought we were
Parcels.
actually asking for them to move the village and increase the buffer.
Well, then.
Is that what we're looking for?
That's what I was asking,
yes.
because I think realistically, they're not going to be able to move it that far.
Okay, I think if we say it as 2 separate things, it will work.
Okay.
You want to move the village, and you want to increase the buffer.
Right.
That way, if the village doesn't get moved, you still want to increase the buffer.
Right.
Okay, 2 separate things.
That works.
Also, when you were discussing the buffer on the rye field, I think Julia had given it a little better wording earlier when it was that what we're really concerned about is that we need something that's a screening right away, not something that's going to be over time. I don't necessarily think it has to be conifers per se, but it has to be an immediate screening as well as the forestation element.
Well, one of the public mentioned that conifers are green all year. In other words, that, at winter, you'll see the houses from the rye field, if you don't have some conifers.
I think if we leave it that we want to have
immediate screening,
how they do it is, you can use that, conifers work for that, but there are other ways to do it. So we don't have to be specific.
What we got is their immediate screening. So we want something other than what we want. We don't want just apples, we want the oranges, too.
They're proposing, the current buffer is deciduous, but it's also some very small plants. So over time, that might be a screening buffer, but it won't be for quite some time. So I'd like for that buffer to include, possibly at a different layer, also a screen. Does that make sense?
You want understory plants, maybe that would be more specific.
No,
No, you don't
that's
want
too
that?
specific. I want to say I want a screen. How they do it.
I'm
want the
in agreement with Julia.
reforestation
Leave it
and I want the
open.
screen.
It's the immediate screening is the goal. It doesn't really matter how they achieve it.
Right, and then the long-term reforestation, that's great.
Well, their first pass at it is what we don't like. Just,
That's why we're saying it needs immediate screening, because it doesn't have one now.
but it was supposed to be immediate screening, is what I mean. I don't think they get it.
I think it's
I think our
our
arborist didn't get it.
arborist that didn't.
I think they'll get it now.
Was there anything that was supposed to be added to that?
Oh, at the beginning, I think when you said you want to recommend approval of the plan and approval of the
Of the
waivers,
waivers,
if
expressly
given
can-
these other conditions are able to be met.
Yes.
And I had one condition that you didn't
What's that?
call out, which was to preserve the stone water tower.
Yes, we'd like to see that preserved.
If
Yeah,
If
yeah,
at
we
all
have to leave the
possible.
caveat.
Possible.
It's not.
Yes, if it's not
Yeah.
possible.
if feasible.
Well, if these properties are being sold, that land's going to go to somebody, who's going to own it?
That's going to be owned by the association.
Okay.
That's an open space.
Well, then if it's being owned by the association can maintain it.
If it's structurally sound, when we get it.
Yeah, but earlier, you made it sound like a different part of the family owned it and you couldn't get their cooperation. But if it's going to be owned by the homeowners, then I guess you can.
Well, it's on the open space, it's on the
To be fair
plan.
to the applicant, I think what he was saying is that he hasn't had sufficient access to the tower to ascertain whether or not it is salvageable. I believe that is what he has been trying
Okay.
to say.
All right.
And I think if we put in that if at all possible we want it to be preserved, that's all we can do. Okay, now, anything else, John?
Did you want to read it back to us?
Oh, my God. Well, if you want me to hit the high spots again?
Is everybody clear?
Or you're
We're
just
clear.
making a joke, right?
Okay.
Kathy
seconded?
Kathy seconded.
Kathy seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you all very much.
Question or comment, we're having a meeting on July 30th for Villanova, is that accurate? Okay. Can we get whatever the new info is on that a few weeks in advance of that?
Sue has it. It's ready to go.
Okay.
There's a conditional use application that was filed, so there's a stormwater report, there's a community impact report, there's plans, so a lot of stuff that
Do we have to adjourn?
Nelson will be here on July 30th.
Don't we have to adjourn? Or did we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
We're adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you.